Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
This thing on, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. I'm your host, Dagan, the Dagster Moriarty. I hope all's well with you. You're joining us today on this 22nd day of November 2024, although who knows when you're actually listening to this. Whenever that is, we hope the future is looking bright. And by we, I mean this crew. Joining us today, here to tickle your eardrums with the dulcet tones of their buttery voices, a pair of LSM's finest, my friends. First, my sister-in-law, baker of butthole bread. You know her as Mama Micah. Hello, Micah.
Hello, Dagan. It's... I will say Cog definitely has the dulcet tones. I've never gotten any compliments on my voice between the accent and whatever the hell else I got going on here. I don't think anyone's ever described my voice as buttery or smooth or any such thing. So that was a welcome surprise.
Oh, I think it's dulcet. Dulcet tones, my friend. It's good to see you, Micah. I'm so glad you're joining us today. I love having you on the show. One of my faves. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to put it out there. Two of my favorites I'm listening to. And of course, sitting in the other box on your screen, the Peter Brady to my Greg. After all, I'm older. My brother. What is there about this guy not to like? I ask you. Lord Cognito, everybody. What's up, Cog?
Hey, what's going on? Back at Stelly with my sis, Micah. It's going to be fun. Always interesting topics. I'm doing good. I'm recovering from a fun birthday week the past week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And it was good. It was good. I was reflective. I was happy because I told Maddie and we did Duke this week. I was like, I got to do everything I want to do. I was selfish for the first time. Generally, I'm always cared about, is this person okay? Is this all right? Oh, my birthday. Yeah. And this was like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do, but low key, but fun. And I really enjoyed it. I disconnected. It was great. So I'm now getting back into society again and getting back in love with you. Because I really disconnected.
Don't you think that's the way it should be on a birthday, though? We all have one day out of 365, right? And I'm not saying it needs to be high profile or fancy, but it should be your choice in every aspect on that day. Whatever you want to do, right? Mm-hmm. Sort of like, if it's super, super intricate or the simplest thing, you should eat what you want. You should drink what you want. You should do what you want. Shouldn't have to work. I think it shouldn't have to work or go to school on your birthday. That should be your day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an adjustment for me, and Micah would appreciate this because growing up in a JW household, these things didn't exist.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm used to not having a birthday. I'm used to not doing anything, and I have to have people push me to be like, no, we're going to celebrate you. And I'm like, oh yeah, all right. It's normal. Again, for kids who are JW, like it's a normal day. You get nothing. Like the famous thing my mom ever told me when I was young. I remember I went to school, and I'm like, yeah, all my friends, they got holiday, they get their Christmas gifts or their birthday gift. What you get me? She's like, boy, I gave you your gift already. Life. Okay. I was ingrained young. You get nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know how that was for you, but it was brutal as a kid at first.
Man.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was because it was a little easier for me because I had a summer birthday. My birthday's in July. So at least at school, it didn't come up that like, oh, Micah never brings in cupcakes for her birthday like the other kids do. So it at least wasn't as apparent that I didn't celebrate my birthday, aside from maybe sometimes someone would ask, did you get anything for your birthday? But usually by the time school started back up in September, nobody's thinking about me, right? Yeah. So I could kind of fly under the radar with that. But it was having that upbringing, it's just boring. It's just genuinely boring. No holidays, no birthdays. The only special event generally was wedding anniversaries because people would celebrate those.
Oh, that's interesting.
But that's it. Like that's all you get. It really was like, this is just boring.
Yeah, JW kids, we went through it.
I always forget that. I always forget that about you two. Yeah, it's very sad, especially in our culture when you have all that peer pressure.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's like a much more serious case of like the kids I grew up with who were Jewish with all the Christmas pressure. You know what I mean? There were a lot of Jewish kids, but there were more kids that celebrated Christmas. So many of the Jewish kids that we grew up with celebrated Christmas by proxy, just because how could their parents not do that? You know what I mean? Where it was like they had the Hanukkah and the Christmas. Then we were jealous of the Jewish kids because they had both.
Oh,
then it was like, why can't we do the Hanukkah then? No, that was never a thing, though. That was never a thing. Shout out to my Jewish peeps. Well, listen, thank you both for being on the show today. I'm excited about having you both. I'm excited about the topics. And I thought, just kind of had a last minute idea. I thought we'd try something new. Micah, heads or tails?
All right. Tails.
Okay. So tails, Micah's going to go first. Heads, Cog's going to go first. Let me do a little flippy here. Okay. Flipped it. It is tails.
Well, all right.
All right, Micah. And if you're ready, we could jump right in. You got a good one today.
Yeah. So I genuinely don't want this to be like morbid or sad. And I think about death a lot. I know I'm already starting off strong here, but I just do. Okay. It's just one of those things that I'm 31. I'm not saying I'm old, but you hit a milestone birthday like 30 and like I'm married now, things like that. And you just start to think like, yeah, it could happen anytime. You know, the invincibility age of my life, long gone. Okay. So it's just something that you think about. Well, I do. And in this, vein here, I was thinking about family heirlooms. And what we traditionally think of as family heirlooms, things with like high monetary value, perhaps like jewelry, maybe it's grandma's, dining room set, things like that. Maybe your auntie had like a mink coat that has been passed down. Like, that's what we often think of. But the topic I sent to you guys was modern family heirlooms. What are things that maybe you own now that you inherited that aren't necessarily a high monetary value, but are items very precious to you. And, for me, there's a couple different things like that. One of them here, which I told you guys I was going to have a prop. And so this is my grandpa's Lord of the Rings book set. And so it's the Lord of the Rings and also The Hobbit.
Super
and
cool, nice.
This is incredibly important to me. These are very well loved paperbacks, like probably to the point that I wouldn't actually read them now. They're just getting very delicate. And I have my own set for when I want to do a reread. But this is something that would be worth 50 cents at a tag sale probably. But to me, it's priceless. I get to see it on my shelf every day in my office. These are the types of things that I put so much value on, of like, this stays in the family, like, should I perish, there's going to be a note under here that says like, give this to, little cousin Johnny or something. Somebody needs to keep these. Don't thrift them or anything. Like, these got to stay in the family. And so I also have some of his tools from his workshop that my dad gave me a tool belt, and some various like screwdrivers, hammer, things, small tools like that, which was a great surprise from my dad for him to mail me those. But that's something else that I get to use them around the house when I tinker and fix things. And it's also just really cool, like, to tell someone someday, like, yeah, this was my grandpa's tools, and another thing that I would hope would stay in the family, But I also, part of why I think of this so often is I grew up, and I mentioned this in the email, having relatives who basically threaten you with their stuff. Like, ever since I was a kid, my grandma would tell my sister and I, when I die, you get those dinner plates. And she had this big curio case. She's still alive. So here's the context. Okay. Grandma's been threatening my sister and I with her demise since I was in elementary school. Grandma still lives. Okay. And we're very happy about that. I don't mean that to sound Like, I'm not happy about
awesome.
it. We're thrilled. But grandma's been threatening us with this curio cabinet of dinnerware. And as a kid, you're like, I don't want this. I want you to be here. You know, like, stop telling me that you're going to die and I get some of your stuff. And it's also just like, what am I going to do with these? I'm 10, you know, but I was also thinking of it in that way of these relatives we may have who are just constantly threatening us with their belongings, you know, and almost telling you like, oh yeah, you get this when I die. And it's like, okay. So between those items and, you know, I don't want to speak it into existence. In my own parents' house, there are a couple key items that I would say these have to stay in the family. Okay. But they're small things. One of them being, if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you may remember visionware pots. Visionware pots were those like like tan, dark colored glass. They were like a brown Coke like color, like Coke.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And my parents still have some of these pots from their original set when they got married. And like, I think a couple of them have broken over the years, but they still have some of them. They're excellent cookware, first of all. And I just remember using them as a kid. My sister making me Kraft mac and cheese in these pots. Yeah,
look at these. You know. They're going for a lot of money, Micah, by the way.
That's the thing is like, yeah, this is something that I genuinely just love, that they still own. They're really cool. I'd want those to stay in the family for sure. They also have this specific clock above their fireplace that I have just always liked since I was a kid. That came from grandma's house as well. And so, and it's not to say like, oh, I want that. It's not that I'm picking out things I want from my parents' house. It's that these have to stay with us in some capacity, whether it's me, my sister, a cousin. You know, these are just things I think of I'd be heartbroken if that got lost in the shuffle. I'd be really upset if this was something that, you know, let's say, because this does happen months after someone passes. Sometimes you say, well, what happened to this item? And it's like, oh no, cousin, whoever put that in the donate pile. They didn't know it was important. So there are certain things that I want earmarked for sure of, we don't get rid of these, you know, because my mom, for example, is not a sentimental person like at all. And so she just doesn't really tie any attachment to belongings, which healthy in some respect. And then in another way, it's just like, oh, I would have kept that. You know, there are things that she will just get rid of, like, oh, I didn't know anyone wanted that. And it's like, you threw out a photo album. I mean,
damn.
It's things like that sometimes. It's like, all right, next time tell me before you go on a cleaning sweep.
Yeah, that's
tough. Because she just has she just has so little attachment to anything physical that it's like, I want you to have your decluttered house. I understand Marie Kondo and all that, but tell me first. So I wanted to, you know, ping this over to you guys, and we can also talk to, it's like a secondary point, if there's anything you believe that you own that, you know, your family would want to inherit. For me, like, I have a large collection of holiday decor, whether it's my Halloween snow globes, my Christmas ornaments. I have a wide array of stuff that I believe some of the children, well, they'll be adults hopefully when I die, would want. I could picture Ayla going through my Pusheen stuff. Okay, I have a lot of Pusheen items.
Pusheen's adorable. Maybe
she'll peel the tattoo off my arm, turn it into a lamp. I don't know. But I just imagine them, you know, having a great day going through all my stuff. But Dagan, I want to kick it over to you first, because actually the desk I'm sitting at, you don't know this, I don't think. The desk I'm sitting at is the drawing table that belonged to one of your mom's cousins. Like, it's an actual drafting table that like flips up and down. And Allie gave this to me because she didn't have space for it in her house anymore. And this is a perfect example of something that, you know, your mom had told me, like, don't ever get rid of it. If you don't have space for it in your house, I'll take it back. Someone will take it. But on the surface, it's just a desk in my office. So I'm curious if you've inherited any such things.
Yeah, you know what? First thing I thought of, I had to break it out. I never tell anybody about this, so it's nice to have the opportunity to talk about it. I'll hold it up on camera here. I got a prop for you guys. Can you see that? It's a horse head ring. It's my grandpa.
Wow.
Who was one of my favorite people, and we lost him, God, I was in my early to mid 20s when he passed, so years ago. But this is a special one. Anything I have of his, and I have various, doodads of his, all very, I don't say this offensively, I say this lovingly, all very Guinea in nature. My grandpa was deeply Brooklyn Sicilian, and this gold horse head ring, is something really special to me because I remember him wearing this, and it's something that he always had on his person. I remember, now I don't know how valuable it is monetarily, but again, Mike is talking about that nostalgic, emotional, sentimental value, something that makes me feel close to him. I used to actually wear this on my finger in my 20s, and then eventually I had it on like a string, not even like a nice chain, like a string that I wore around my neck. And it always made me think of The Godfather, besides my grandfather, because horsehead, but no spoilers, but also this is older. This is OG. This has to be older than The Godfather. I would say this dates back at least to the 60s rather than the 70s. And as I understand it, somebody told me, one of my aunts told me that it originally had, I don't know if you guys could see it, but it's got a little diamond eye in there. Again, I don't know what it's real, what the carats are, but as I understand it, that was originally a ruby, originally a red eye, which sounds really cool. But this is something that I keep close to me. I knew exactly where it was when Micah brought up the topic. And it speaks to a larger thing that I think of when I think of like things with sentimental value and heirlooms, because my life, anything really from my grandparents or from my grandparents' house, which is the home that our mom grew up in, because that was the family gathering place of my childhood. That was, besides, I loved growing up in the two houses that I grew up in also, but something about my grandparents' place, the Sunday dinners, the holidays, the summer barbecues, those weekday lunches with my grandma where we were playing hooky from school because of a doctor appointment, that sort of thing. So any tchotchkes or knickknacks that remind me of growing up in that house are the things that tend to be the things I think about and the things that are most important to me. And most of them don't probably have much monetary value, but again, that doesn't matter. It's just those objects that were always there. They were like part of the setting and they evoke those warm memories. And some of those things I have in my house, some of them, my sisters have, some of them my mom have. So they're floating around in my aunts and uncles, they're floating around in some capacity. And I always look at them like somebody has this large ceramic rooster that used to be on a shelf in my grandparents' house. Sort of an object that was always there that nobody talked about. It was just, always, it was just a fixture. And I look at that thing and I just think, wow, if that object could talk, it's seen so many years, so many memories, the kids growing up, people coming over for Sunday dinner, my aunts growing up there and then leaving the house, my mom as a little girl. Like it's like one of those things that just, it's important. You know what I mean? It was part of the whole atmosphere. The one thing that I was psyched when Micah brought this up, because I keep forgetting to ask about this. There's an object from my childhood. I don't know what happened to it, and I don't know if this even makes sense to anybody, but it was this liquor bottle. But it was really, as a little kid, I remember this thing being 5 feet tall. Now, I don't know if that's an exaggeration, but it was, if you guys could imagine this, it was this tall Revolutionary War soldier in the shape of a bottle. Like it was this beautifully sculpted liquor bottle that it had to be at least 3 feet tall. But as a kid, it towered over me. And I don't even know what kind of liquor it held, but it was always there in my grandparents' cabinet where they kept the alcohol, where they kept the various bottles of liquor, the scotch and the sherries and all that. I wonder what happened to that. And I think it was like a really beautiful cobalt blue. It always struck me as a kid. I think the things that seemed the most like toys as a kid were the things that really resonated. But I wonder where that thing ever got to. It's one of the things I remember my mom and my aunts sort of like dicing things up when my grandma, who passed away after my grandpa, she lived for years after, when she passed away and they had to get the house in shape to sell it, which again is that all important house that my mom grew up in. I remember them kind of dicing things up and going through things. And I don't remember that ever surfacing, that bottle. So I kind of I always wondered where that got to. I have other things of my grandpa's. He was a hairdresser. I have his barber scissors, which are one of those really beautiful pairs of hair cutting scissors that don't need to be sharpened. They're like Wall brand or something. And he used to cut my hair with those growing up, and I still have those. So it's those little things that mean the most, mostly of growing up with my grandparents, that just tend to mean the most. I know what Mike is saying about it sounding morbid. I don't know if I've ever told anybody about this, but since my 30s, probably since around Micah's age, so running like 20 years now, I have this thing that I keep called my career box, which is just like kind of an Apple box full of stuff. It's basically full of merch from the various animated series that I've worked on over the years. So it's like a stuffed animal, a coloring book, action figures of the various shows that I've worked on. And some of the shows I've worked on were a little more on the obscure side. Maybe they only ran for 1 or 2 seasons and had very limited merch in some cases. So I always tried to get at least 1 or 2 things. This way, my kids, when they get older, and my grandkids years in the future will be able to open this box. I hope I'm around a long time, but who knows, right? Could open this box and say, what did Dad do? What did Grandpa do? And then you could just open that box and see all the things I worked on, and a few of the books that I'm in, a few of the magazines I'm in where I've done interviews. So it's like that animation career box of just, Dad worked on this. Oh, he worked on this. He worked on Blue's Clues, all the merch from the various different things, because you can't keep the media. Mm-hmm. So my thing was like, keep them, a piece of merch from everything. This way they could point right back to, Dad worked on this weird. What is this weird orange guy? Oh, that's the Mr. Men show. You know what I mean? It ran on Cartoon Network for like 6 months. It's long since forgotten in 2024. God knows 30 years from now where it's going to be. It's going to fade into obscurity. So I have that career box. And again, sometimes I know what Mike is saying. Like, I feel like it is morbid, but it's like, you know what I mean? I try to think about it in terms of, I know how much I wonder about, and I still have my parents, thank God, but I often say, like, I wonder what they got up to when they were young, stories, things get forgotten. You know what I mean? So this could point directly to at least, what did Grandpa do for a living? And, how did he spend his time? What was he a part of? That sort of thing. So that's something that, it's like a running thing with me. I have this box full of, junk. You would open it up and be like, what is all this stuff? It's these various disconnected things, but it's all, stuff from shows I've worked on. So awesome. This way they could say, well, Dad was good for something.
He was productive. He did something.
Oh, yeah. Did Colin ever tell you there's one artifact that we grew up with? I don't know who has it. I don't know if Colin has it or if Uncle Mike has it, but there was this seemingly random sugar spoon from like a sugar jar. And it was this articulated windmill. The spoon itself had this weird bottom that you scoop the sugar out for your coffee or tea, but the top of it had a windmill. It was a shape like a windmill, and the top of it spun. It was just like this really kind of cool articulated spoon. And that was one of the things I remember me and my siblings, especially Kyle, like being like, where is that? Not even that we wanted that, but we just wanted to make sure somebody had it, because that was one of the things that was always there. After dinner, the adults are having their coffee and dessert. That spoon was on the table from the 70s all the way through, the early aughts when my grandparents left us. Did he ever tell you about that spoon?
No, and because Colin, because your grandparents died when he was in college, right? Because
my grandma did. Yeah.
Right. One of the things he mentions is he had nowhere to place any of the big items. Like Allie has one of your grandma's chairs from her living room, but Colin didn't have a home to put any of these type of things in. There were pieces of furniture that's like, it would have been cool to save, but what am I going to do with this? I don't have a place to keep anything like this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, unfortunately, he does mention sometimes that there are items he's like, I wish we could have saved this, but no one had. First and foremost, college age, you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years, in 10 years. Is someone going to hold on to a dining room table for you for maybe 20 years before you settle down? You're not in an apartment anymore type deal, like you have space. And that's exactly what happened. Honestly, Colin didn't buy this house here. He was apartment living in California for so long. He still really didn't have space for big items, from your grandparents' house.
Good point.
But
yeah, the youngest is probably often shortchanged with that sort of stuff because they're not really ready to take it. And what people should do in that regard is to say, I'll hold this for you until you have a place of your own. This way we'll divvy it up. Yeah, he probably got robbed in that regard. I don't have a lot of that big stuff either. But I mean, it doesn't really mean anything to me. Again, I just want somebody to have it so it's not gone.
Absolutely. Well, and it's actually really cool that when I mention, I have some of my grandpa's workshop tools and you have some of your grandpa's tools in the hair cutting variety, because that was his profession. The reality is that these are all the same category of our grandparents, either like their hobbies or their actual work. And these are things that we are now like, I want to just have this, even from the practical side, like this desk that I sit at all the time, that was your mom's cousin, or just something that I said it was her cousins. This is not the cousin. This desk is not him. Or things that are just purely sentimental. I do have like a piece of jewelry from when my grandfather passed away. Actually, you mentioned the youngest getting shortchanged at times. My parents specifically held that aside because when my sister turned 10, my grandparents, who weren't JWs, this is important, gave her like a necklace. I think it was for her 10th birthday. It might have been her 13th. No, she must have been 10. She must have been 10. Okay. And so when I turned 10, though, my grandpa had died. So my parents gave me this piece of jewelry from his estate because, I never got one. When I turned 10, I didn't get the special necklace like my sister did. So they did set something aside for me, which was very thoughtful. But it is often that depending on where you are in life, when something like this happens, you may say like, I'd love to keep this, living room chair, but I'm in a studio apartment. What can I do with it? Type deal. But at Cog, I want to toss this over to you. Do you have in your possession any heirlooms that you would consider, or even the flip side, is there anything that you currently have that you consider would be an heirloom to your friends or family?
This is a great topic. I just felt so bad because I was like, it was so tough for me. I was really thinking long and hard about this. I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, and I was going through my history. Obviously, both my parents are still alive, and they are not heirloom people. Like, there's no sentimental. Like my family's weird. Like, don't get me wrong, they're a loving family, but they do not. We're not. They don't show it through like, hey, they show it through like what we did for you, right? But as opposed to, hey, I'm going to give you something, or this means something to me that I will eventually pass to you. And then it got me thinking the generation before, and I was thinking about my grandparents. And with them, it all comes down to one thing. Even though this is technically not a modern heirloom, it always comes down to the damn house. Everything is about the house, the house, the house. Now, just for context, obviously I grew up in the South Bronx. And, we were in the projects when I was very young, right? And very notorious projects. Look up, Google Larry Davis, police, South Bronx. You will find stories. It's a very notorious project where infamous things happen. Anyway, I was very young. So long story short, my grandfather's great aunt, when she passed, she had left him this really nice house in the South Bronx. It's almost like an oasis block of brownstones. It's a very small stretch surrounded by projects. So I remember very young us moving, into this house. And affectionately we call it the Huxtable house. It's huge. It's like four floors, basement, backyard, all the lords know, like Sov, King, this was the house they know me for, right? Okay. And this is where everyone would come through, and I before I lived on the top floor, on the second floor, my mom, the third floor was my grandparents. And then the first floor was actually my aunt. So basically this is the family house. In his mind, he's like, I don't care what happens to you. You can always come back here. That was the energy kind of thing.
It's awesome.
And yeah, it's just silly things. Just like, you know, his thing was like I got to speak of my grandfather, very proud individual, his collections, you know what I'm saying? Like he did have like, you know, they can appreciate this, like the era of like when the stereo came out, you know what I'm saying? It is like the amplifier, the receiver, the record player, the dual cassette deck. Like this was the thing, right? Then he's got the record collection, all the oldies, the Motown, you know what I'm saying? He's got that, what is it, the 12 inches and they even got the 45 record player and all that stuff. So how we internalize it is when they passed, it was kind of like, this is the sacred area. Like, this is the museum. No one touched this. We leave things the way they were. The plastics over the couch. The big back TV Zenith that looked like a furniture. That is it. When you come to this house, that third floor, we left because that was their floor. And the dining table, all that stuff is there. Like, it's like a sacred area. We just leave it as is. And I think what it is my mom, who's still there now, like, she refuses to rent it out, you know, because her thing is because she doesn't trust anyone, you know, and unless it's family, only family can come back here. So that's pretty much as far as like the heirloom, because I know eventually, you know, when my mom, right now it's in care of my mom, and still I have family members, I have cousins that live there and stuff like that, and an aunt that lives there. But when she passes, we did have these uncomfortable conversations. Okay, what's going to happen? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, Cog, it's going to be you. You're going to have to take over. I mean, it's paid for and everything, but you're going to have taxes and, you know, things like that and control as far as, you know, what's happening with the, you know, financial, the upkeep and that kind of stuff. So that's the part that it looms over me because I'm like, man, I don't want to deal with any stuff, but you have to talk about it, right? You have to deal with it, you know what I'm saying? Being that. So those are the things I think about as far as to the second part of your question, as far as myself, right? And I think for me, you know, I got a whole bunch of weird things, you know, so obviously, you know, movie collection from a gaming standpoint, my ColecoVision, which was passed down from my father, wasn't for my dad, who was not a JW. And when he had visitation rights from me, he would get upset. He'd be like, that JW stuff's a cult. I'm getting you a birthday gift.
He took care of you.
Yeah, he's like, you want Transformers? We going to Toys R Us. And we getting you devastated. I'm like,
I love it.
Dad. And if I come back, my mom's be furious. I'd have gifts. And it was a thing. Like he did not care. He was like, whenever I'm around, you gonna get something. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, talk. So it was me sneaking away doing stuff. So Coleco was important because I remember, you know, he took me to my first arcade. You know, 42nd Street, you know, seeing all games and stuff like that, you know, and I remember he had a ColecoVision with like 40, 50 games. And at the time, bro, Coleco, if you think about it, it's a weird platform that had everybody. It had Donkey Kong as a launch game. It had, you know, Nintendo. It had Sega had a game called Turbo. You know, all the companies were just starting out. I mean, obviously, Atari was the more popular thing, but ColecoVision was like the more powerful and, you know, more resolution or whatever the terms were at the time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that I still have that ColecoVision. I still have all those games. Another thing probably would be, which I've always talked about, obviously, you know, Lord Cognito, the Shinobi. I have the arcade upright Shinobi. Also have an arcade upright of this game called Rolling Thunder by
oh dude,
I love that game.
Such a good game.
Such a good game. You like James Bond, and it was side.
I didn't know you had that, Cog. I knew you had Shinobi, but I didn't know you had the cabinet for Rolling Thunder.
And what's crazy is it's funny how life works because Rolling Thunder came out first, and then when I was doing the history of Shinobi, they were inspired by Sega was inspired by Namco's Rolling Thunder because if you look
can see it.
You can see it roll side to side. A person that jumps up to a higher level that goes down.
Yep.
The whole thing, and very difficult kind of thing. So I would say that comic collection. I got a lot of comics, you know, the X-Men and my Silver Surfers, and you know, and I'm the guy that I had the plastic with the backboard.
Oh, no.
And I was that guy. Like you don't open it. You buy 2 copies, one that you read and one that you
I respect it.
Yeah, like I gotta thank King for that. King really, we would go to the comic book store every week over into Manhattan, And like we would just buy the latest books. I remember when Jim Lee did X-Men and all the different eras. He'd be like, "Yo, this is gonna be Birth," and I would take his advice. He knew that stuff. So
Cog was a Wednesday warrior. Look at you.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Wizard magazine, and this is mint. This means it's 4.5. This means it's 3. It's dog. Like I was on it like that. So yeah, I got a serious comic collection still there. And the other thing that's sentimental to me is that a lot of people that don't know me, I used to be very, athletic. I used to play sports. I was very, very good. And I still got a lot of my trophies. I still got like my tournaments.
That's awesome.
And my, South Bronx shirts and Manhattan Center shirts and all that type of stuff. So that's probably the stuff that probably means the most to me. And probably my cousin, Marcus, who actually shares my same birthday. And we're very close. So I know he's been looking forward to things. He's like, yeah, I want that. He'd come over, he'd be like, yeah, I want that. I was like, relax.
No. He's got the fly hand.
Yeah, someone come over like, yeah, that's going to be me. Yeah, he's definitely that. He's definitely Birdman hands on all my things. And we're similar. We're Scorpios, we're similar. That listen, at the end of the day, I love him to death, but he is hilarious. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But I get it. Not heirlooms, but I had to mention the house. The house
of course
is everything. And
I love that, dude.
Yeah. I think
it's like a museum.
It's a museum, yeah.
It's a really sweet, I mean, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Like your mom, it's just, it's not even a museum because that sounds cold. It's a tribute. You know what I mean? It's like this has to stay the way it is, especially with something collectible and valuable like a record collection.
Oh my God.
To keep that and for a family not to fight over it. Because I've heard of those stories too.
Oh, those are worse.
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
It's like everybody needs a cut. Everybody's worried that they're gonna get left behind, and who's got the most valuable jewelry and the problems that could cause in a family. Yeah. So to have the family on the same page and be like, no, like, especially with the matriarch calling the shots and everybody respecting that. Yeah. That's really, really cool. And shout out to the ColecoVision, man. That was like growing up. I'm old enough to remember like that was what would become like something like the Neo Geo in the 90s. Like everybody wanted it, but nobody had it. It was just way out of reach for most people. It's like, we have to settle for the Atari 2600. Rather have the ColecoVision.
Yeah.
That was the first like elite home video game console.
Yeah, my dad had everything. Mr. Do, Burger Time.
So cool, dude.
Like everything that was popular of that generation of the 80s, he had it. And I remember even unique games. There's this weird game, I don't know why it sticks with me. It was called Gateway to Asphi. It was a dungeon crawler kind of game. Very difficult, but light RPG mechanics. And
I'm gonna look that up.
I got I think it's called Gateway to, I think it's Asphi, ASPHAI, I believe. The name of the company, the developer was Epyx, EPYX, I believe.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I vividly remember the cartridge, the way it looked. And it was so different. That game used to scare me. I was like, you go into certain areas and you fight wizards and stuff. And mind you, they were very simplistic graphics, but it was very complex for its time. But the Coleco had that almost like a phone type controller with buttons that, like almost like you're dialing a phone with a knob. Games were weird back in the day.
They were, but you could trace Cog directly back to that. Like everything you're about, your love of video games, your passion for it, it all dates back to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I always thank my dad all the time, because of him, breaking me free from the clutches. I wouldn't have been a gamer if it wasn't for him. He indoctrinated me early. So yeah, shout out to him.
That's awesome.
Oh, dude, especially because so much just the rules of being like a JW extend so far. It applies to what music you can listen to, what movies you can watch, what games you can play. I remember being told I couldn't watch Kim Possible anymore, which was my favorite show as a kid.
They told me I couldn't watch Thundercats. I was losing it.
Oh no! It's like
Sword of Omens. That's demonic. You can't. This is a Christian house. No.
That I remember I was watching, I had Sleeping Beauty on VHS, and it's like towards the end where Maleficent says something about like calling on the powers of hell, which is pretty on the nose, I'm not going to lie, but my mom heard it and she'd never watched the movie with us. She bought it, I'm sure, at BJ's. That's where we got all our Disney VHS tapes. And she was like, oh my God, and like threw it out. Yes. But so it just was, it's like, shout out to your dad, because gaming especially was a tricky subject. I remember I had my Kim Possible Game Boy Advance game, and my mom telling me I shouldn't play it anymore because it's violent, and it's a cheerleader beating up people, but it's like, no, this is too violent. You know,
I remember that game.
It's rated E for everyone, but you. And so it just was. It's like, yeah, it's a weird way to grow up.
It is. Look, I know I've been JW ragging. Like, I will say this, as a person, I know it made me. The principles of religion made me a good person. I know the foundation of it is good. It's very tough as a young person to go through it. And a funny story, taken about one of my friends who also, grew up in it. I remember when we have to get G.I. Joes, we would go get the G.I. Joes, open the box, and he would take the guns out and hide them. I'd be like, y'all, let me hide them. Because he knew when he brought those home, there would be an inspection of these toys. Oh, you got Duke, you got Flint, you got Storm Shadow, they got knives, they can stake out.
They had to go.
You could play with it, but without that. Like, it was serious. Yeah, it was serious, man.
That's very restrictive for a kid.
Oh, my God. I got, back when Strawberries, before FYE, we had Strawberries Music Store.
That.
And I bought the Hillary Duff So Yesterday CD, or was that that might have been the single on it. I don't remember. It's been a very long time. But I remember my mom saying, I'm going to listen to that before you do, because I don't know what that Hillary Duff is saying. And it's like, the Disney CD? Now the Disney CD is potentially a problem. It's like, it's Hillary Duff from Lizzie
but
McGuire.
Maleficent was Disney, Micah. It was Maleficent's fault. Everything Disney after that was tarnished.
I remember, get a little dark here, when David Carradine died. That whole debacle, he was on an episode of Lizzie McGuire, and that was a problem.
Wow.
Wait a second. Tell me that again. What happened?
Do you remember how David Carradine died?
I do. Allegedly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was on, before he died, he was a guest on an episode of Lizzie McGuire because his brother was the dad on the show. His real life brother played Lizzie McGuire's dad.
I didn't know this.
So there's an episode where he guest stars on it. And at the time, my mom was all excited because she was like, oh, it's David Carradine. And then when the reruns would play, it would be like, Bad Man, David Carradine. Like,
yeah, and you know what's weird about that? That Disney appearance had to be post Kill Bill, right? So,
I imagine so.
Right?
I mean, just age-wise, that's feeling like weird. That must have happened.
Wow. That is tough. You know what, though, Cog? I don't know if I ever told you this. Not that much different, a lot worse, ultimately. Mm-hmm. But my parents were like, really, when I was little, Allie and Colin certainly wouldn't remember this because this phase was over by the time they were even born. But they were like really hardcore hippies. And early on in my Star Wars figure collecting, late in the 70s, my mom took the guns and she kept them. She kept them all to give them back to me when I got older. But I spent the first 3 or 4 years playing Star Wars without the blasters.
No, like, damn.
Just fist fights in Star
then
Wars.
Then they realized we're not hippies anymore. We're not even Democrats anymore. What are we doing?
Damn, Luke and Darth Vader was throwing hands in your house. Damn,
is that crazy?
Those toys were popular. I remember seeing those. Yeah,
but let me ask you guys this though about the Jehovah's thing with video games. You guys are a little bit different, a little bit apart generationally. But were there any acceptable video? Like, did they say, okay, you could play Mario games, for example? Was that okay?
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Like for me, my age, generally speaking, racing games were like the de facto Jehovah's Witness games. Okay. So we could always play Mario Kart. We could always play Need for Speed type, because you're racing, at the worst, you're breaking the speed limit. Like that, which would come under a little bit of scrutiny if we played like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. And it's why are there police in this game? Like, you're breaking the law. But even so, my mom would allow that. However, she, by mistake, bought us Road Rash for PC when we were kids. Because she's like, oh, it's a racing game. And then, of course, you're beating people with pipes and whipping them with chains. My sister and I are loving it. It's like you've given us crack for the first time. And then I remember my mom actually watching us play it was like, wait a minute. This is what I bought you at Walmart? And getting rid of it. But generally, sports games were always okay. on GameCube, I think it's NFL Blitz is the one where like you catch on fire if you had, like make a play. Like those types of games were always allowed because it's sports violence, which is a fine line, but it was acceptable. And then racing, I don't know for you, Cog, like those were the ones that typically we could always play.
Yeah. What saved me is that I was actually very big in the sports game. So, I remember, Genesis Lakers versus Celtics and, the earlier sports entries by EA Sports. And we were competitive that way. Yeah, racing was definitely a go.
Yeah.
I think I got to give Mama Cog credit in the sense that for whatever reason, she wasn't, I don't want to say like she was an absent parent as far as video games, but she really didn't care. She would just look for a second and then go about my business. And all the kids are doing their whatever. So it was never a situation where it's like, hey, I got to sit there and I got to analyze, what's going on with you on this. I think when I was younger, she was more restricted. But as I got older, because gaming, I'm thinking Genesis and all that stuff, probably like my first kind of says, she kind of stayed out of that. Like she didn't really boss. So she cooled down. And I think we had like a little compromise. You ain't gonna be going through all this stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
I think where her restrictions still was high with like movies and what are you watching like on television as opposed to games. She just didn't, I guess she just viewed that, there's probably no threat there. So I was like, okay, we'll deal with
They didn't understand. Like I could tell you, my parents who were born in the early 50s, I could tell you they seemed very confused by video games early on. They just didn't understand.
100%. My mom is a baby boomer and they're very non-technical. It doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
I'll leave you to your devices.
They weren't even trying to understand it.
Yes, they did.
They were just like, all right, that's not for, there was an attitude of like, what's funny? My aunts, my younger, like my parents' younger siblings who were born in the early 60s as opposed to the early 50s already generationally like got it. Yeah. Like that 10-year difference, 8 to 10 year difference was a big change for like, the people that were born in the 50s, they just didn't even try to get it.
They don't want, it's the same thing to this day. Like my mom, I will have to write instructions for my mom how to do something with a web browser. Like she won't even attempt it sometimes until I am present because she's afraid she's going to mess something up. And the last funny story in terms of this was that I remember, it was the age of the computer. I'm like, Ma, like, you got to get a computer. No, I have my word processor. I'm good. I have my typewriter. No. I literally, like, I have to bully my mom. So I just buy it. And I'll just show up and buy something and start installing. I'm like, here's a TV. No, my TV is, no, here's HD. I remember when she saw HD for the first time. Oh my God, it's so clear. Oh my Lord. Yeah, see? You gotta listen to me. And I say thing with the computer. Oh my God, it's so
tough.
Browser. I literally have to bully her because this woman will stay with her antiquated things and say that they are perfectly fine and she doesn't need anything. And I'm like, oh my God, this woman is driving me crazy. So yeah, that's what I just gift my mom stuff and set it up and it's bullied into the house and it's yours now.
That is a key difference though. Like my parents are not the best with technology, but they were born in 61 and 62. I would come home from high school and my dad would be playing GameCube. Like he'd be playing Mario Kart. Like he figured that out, whereas if he was maybe a little older, he would have missed the cutoff and just been like newfangled things. I'm not about that. But he would play Road Rash with us. All right. On PC occasionally. Like he was young enough to get into that. No, it is a distinct difference, 50s to 60s, that of like, wow, when I worked in IT, for example, and dealing with different professors, there was just a cutoff of like, this guy's just too old. And you just know you're going to have to remote desktop to click on the one button.
There'll be RDP into this because he ain't going to figure it out.
I mean, one of my coworkers at my old job at the discount store, really fantastic guy who I loved working with, older than my parents though. And so he came into work one day and he was like distraught that he thought he had deleted AOL. And I mean AOL itself, because he removed the icon from his desktop and he was like, they're going to find me. And it's like, buddy, like, all you did was remove the icon because he's thinking I deleted everyone's mail in the whole world because the AOL's gone. I have done this.
That is hilarious.
And it was like, no, you're fine. You're fine. Like, and he was also a bit of a gamer. I think it was his nephew gave him an old PlayStation And he goes, oh, I love that. Coot Bandicoot. He's like, me and Coot playing all weekend.
You know, when they get the names wrong, that's what I love.
Oh, no.
It was always, Foxfire browser and Coot Bandicoot. And it's like, I love working with this guy. There's something special about working with older people and that you actually enjoy their company.
Absolutely.
And it's like, my best friend is this 65-year-old man. Here I am, 20 years old working at the store. My best friend is this 65-year-old dude.
They do. We share a lot of that, like as far as the IT background, also, helping older people. It's fun because you learn a lot and you see their little idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. And it's hilarious. And like they think you're such a genius by helping them with the simplest things. Yeah. And it's funny.
Well, you are. I mean, it's different perspective. You know what? And I got to say, too, Mr. Glass Houses over here, I'm guilty of doing that right now with things like TikTok. I think I would have fun with TikTok, but I cannot be bothered with it. So I'm doing the same thing. It's just like dismissing it as not for me because I'm just too old. And I know I would have a blast. I think I would really have a blast with TikTok, but I'm doing the same thing. It's just like, all right, that's for somebody. That's for the young whippersnappers. So it's every generation's got those things. Absolutely. Now I'm the old man.
Yep. Same.
Micah, what do you think? Did we do your topic justice?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The final thing I want to say on the actual topic, when Cog, discussing your family home here, my sister and I have talked about, the possibility of, when our parents pass away, what happens to their house? It is chock full of things. And we have both agreed that we hope our parents downsize before they pass away because we don't want to have to deal with the entire house, the workshop, the woodshed, the whole the basement. It's like, we hope our parents live a long time because we love them. We also hope they live long enough to say, oh, we're sick of living in a big house. We're going to move in and go to somewhere small and sell half our stuff. We're fingers crossed they're going to sell half their stuff before they pass away because, man, we don't want to deal with it.
Do you think they're going to do that? Are they going to snowbird it or anything like that or what?
It's hard to know.
They're still young, pretty young.
They are, right, exactly. Yeah. They're in their early 60s. So
yeah, they're young still.
They talk about someday, maybe moving, but my sister still lives in Mass. Her stepkids, they're very close with. So it's like they talk about moving south, but I kind of doubt it because I think they want to be close to my sister no matter where they are. But no matter what, I'm just hoping that the workshop specifically is cleared out so I don't have to deal with it. Because it has things going back to Grandpa's time. It has wood that was cut by Grandpa's uncle and it's still in there. And it's just like, we got to deal with this before I have to deal with it.
Yeah. You know what? That's funny. I know probably it's not intentional, but it's probably important to think that way to save your kids from the stress of that. Right. Although it's morbid. And again, it's a topic you don't want to discuss because it's just you don't want to put it out there. You don't want to give it bad juju or anything like that. But it's that's interesting. The downsizing thing. Cause I'm early in my 50s and I still want to upsize, which is just so counterintuitive. It's like, I need an even bigger house. It's like, no, why? You're going to be empty nesters within the next 10 years. You know what I mean? It's some kind of I don't know. It's like a brain worm. You know what I mean? It's like you can't get out of that very American mindset. But yeah, that's interesting. And the early 60s, that's a tough age because you're not young anymore, but you're not old by any means yet.
No. And this is genuinely sad. One of my dad's friends passed away recently who is just right around his age. And my sister and I both were like, oh my God. It was just the realization that people our parents' age do die, and it's just, of course, reality, but it just really sent it home when I was like, what? You're telling me that guy died? Because I remember that guy coming over our house when I was a kid and that type of stuff. And it's like, oh, well, all right. And then you just kind of look at your parents a little differently and see them once again. I recognize I'm not invincible. I see that very clearly. My stomach tells me all the time. It's like, bitch, you ain't nothing. And then you look at your parents in a very similar way of they're no longer invincible. It's no longer a guarantee type thing, And again, I did not want this to be a sad topic, but it's just the reality and just something that you do. The older you get, the more you kind of sit with it. Even actually getting married was a big catalyst to this. Of Colin had said to me legitimately, he's like, well, if I die, the business is up to you. And I remember thinking, oh my God, the business? I would be in charge of the business? That's huge. And that's really actually what kicked all this off, was the realization of there are real consequences to life now. I'm not just, single and with a studio apartment, and if I die, just throw it all in the trash. Now I'm married, and if something happens to my husband, I would be in charge of this business he created, and all the hosts and would be looking to me for answers, and I'm like, I'm not the answer guy. I just work here. So no, that's actually really what kicked it all off, was that realization after getting married. And yeah, here we are. Me thinking about my parents dying and all their stuff that I don't want to deal with.
Fair enough.
I love ending it on that note. If you're satisfied, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, parents, please don't die, but also please throw out about half your belongings before you do.
Yes, and all those big responsibilities that we don't want to deal with.
Very good advice.
But not the visionware pots. All right, don't throw out those. Don't throw out the mantle clock with the guy on the horse. I want that.
You want that. There we go.
Those visionware pots, it's like that Corning glass that just, you can't break it. It's like that's Gorilla Glass. I know everybody talks about Gorilla Glass and their iPhones and their iPads and stuff, but that's when they invented that glass technology. That's not only is it nostalgic, I don't know if that's 70s or 80s, but you look at it and you're like, oh my God, that's like an 80s kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. Everything brown, everything
so cool.
See-through, translucent.
So cool. And they know it's valuable just for like glancing at eBay. It's like, oh shit, this stuff's going for serious money. Because a lot of people threw it out. They definitely didn't break it. I could tell you that. They'll
probably sell it rather than give it to me.
That's the danger, especially with this retro craze. Everything's retro. It's not just games. Everything retro, everything nostalgic, everything from a past decade is, we're in that. I'm starting to look at, I don't even know why I'm doing this to myself. And I shouldn't change the subject too much, but I'm starting to look at early to mid 70s Toyota Corollas.
Wow.
And you would think, oh, those, dude, these are going for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 because there's none left.
There's none left.
Yeah. I mean, the cheapest I saw was like a shell of a car for $4,000. I mean, this is a rusted out husk. Somewhere in the desert of California, like they didn't even. It's literally the picture on eBay Motors is the car's filled with garbage, and maybe you could clean a few badges off it and like door handles and stuff. $4,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? Everything old that still exists is worth money because people have memories tied to that era, and thereby those things, which I get. I'm a sucker for that. But yeah, man. And don't sell it. If you have valuable stuff, leave it for your kids. You know what I mean? I don't think I have anything valuable. I have some, you know what I mean? It's like, they're going to get my career box.
They get that box.
Worth this shit.
Take that on Antiques Roadshow, and they'll be like, I do not want this. Please leave.
What is this junk? Cog.
Yo.
I want to go over to you for your topic. We're changing gears here, but I like it. I like this topic. This is a good one. To my knowledge, hasn't been done. So take it away, my dude.
Yeah, I want to talk about that ride or die friend, right? And it's funny because, like I told you, it was my birthday week last week, and I always look forward to it. My best friend Paul hits me up because he's like, what you want to do, and he's probably one of the most coolest, accommodating persons. This is the person, like, when the chips are down and you need to call someone, he got you. I don't get me wrong, I love my cousins, love King, love my friends and family. Everyone's great. But like Paul over the years has separated himself from the pack with just the level of care. This is the guy that will, help an old lady across the street. You know what I'm saying? This is a guy that gives, the shirt off his back for someone, I would say random strangers, but just a very kind individual, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. So it got me thinking, and he's like, all right, what you want to do? Like he's one of the ones I was telling you earlier that will push me like, no, we got to do something for you and your birthday. And I just thought about, a couple of moments with him. This is a friend from, the early college days. And I think we bonded over, it was funny, Italian kid from City College. And I remember bonding over him because he had a Nas Illmatic CD. I said, this is my man right here. This is my man. I said, what you know about that?
That's all it takes.
I was like, what you know about that in Connecticut? You don't know about that. What you doing with that? Like, he's like, oh, no, that's my man. We exchange and we just vibe. Like, this is my dude right here. So, and another thing is, our tradition is like, I kind of appreciate this, like football Sundays. Like, bro, we got the 2 TVs and, he'll get stuff popping. He'll have his friends and he'll like there's this like thing that's called like the dip. And it's like, it's you'll like it, but it's like this concoction he makes and all my friends come through and they love it. And they got scoopers and like, yo, we got to make sure Paul come through with the dip. Like that's a thing. Like the dip has to happen. And then we'll watch, all the 1 o'clock games, the 4 o'clock games. Obviously this is before ILO's podcast, but you know what I'm saying? Like, well, that did affect us a little bit. He's like, damn, we ain't gonna do football Sundays, man. Like, it's a thing, but it'll be like 2 TVs on. One will be Red Zone, the other will be the local, whether it be the Jets, because he's also a Jet fan like Colin is. And I watch him go through his emotional thing. It's kind of hilarious because they always bungle it up at some point, and I gotta watch him yell at the TV. It's hilarious, my man. So, but the thing about Paul, I gotta give him his flowers, is like, there have been a couple of times I've been at my lowest. And one specific, because we in the heirloom topic, we talked about the Huxtable house, right? We talked about the house. So I remember, this wasn't my greatest moment, but it was actually my grandfather at the time. And I had moved up to the 4th floor of the Huxtable house, right? A 2-bedroom. So at one room, I had all my guys come through. We gaming, we doing our stuff. I would say I'm probably around 18, 19. I'm just out of high school. I'm just getting my first little job, making my money.
Okay.
And, look, well, we rambunctious group sometime. We loud, we beat you in Halo. We might yelling, whatever. We watching the boxing fights. We get a little crazy. Yes, we were a little rambunctious sometimes. We make noise. Sometimes my mom will come, hey, keep it down. Sometimes they hear my parents come up the step. Everybody like, yo, keep it down. Cogs fair. His grandfather's like, keep it down. So I remember this one particular story where, we got into it, me and my grandfather. And my grandfather's a very tall, intimidating figure. You got to respect him. It's all about respect. So he came up and was like, it wasn't like the noise or something. I was like, look, we'll keep it down. And he just went off for me, right? So, this is young Cog. I'm feeling like I'm a man now. Like, you ain't going to talk to me and I'm paying rent. So I'm like, I don't even want to hear it. So I'm like, you ain't going to talk to me like that. And it just escalated. And the next thing you know, Dag, I was thrown out the house.
Oh
no! I was like live thrown out the house. I was like, everybody, all right, y'all gotta go. This is the situation. So, and I remember it was a very contentious time because my grandfather was so intimidating. My grandmother and my mother, they stood quiet. I actually did not forgive them for this for a while. They stood quiet while I end up being thrown out the house. So I'm thrown out. I'm getting grabbing bag of stuff. I can't believe what's happening to me. And first person I call, my man Paul. Yo, what happened? Yo, I'm coming through right now. Got the truck. He's like, bro, you got to spot this stay. Don't worry about it. Come through to Connecticut, lay low. Hopefully this will blow over. You good. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. He held me down. And this throwout lasted an extended period of time. Wow. There was a lot of pride involved. No, both sides were not speaking. You know what I'm saying? And again, people don't see me now. But yeah, I was a wild boy back then. I was very prideful. You know what I'm saying? So let's just say that. But I remember during that situation, he held me. I remember, times I had to be in the hospital or vice versa, always having each other's back, kind of thing. And a person that at any moment you can call and will stop what they're doing and come see if you're okay. And I just wanted to give him his flowers on that. So yeah, it just got me thinking about, that what I consider that ride or die friend or family member, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I guess I'll start it off with you, Mike. I'm curious because it's like, who's that person, any stories that you have in conjunction with it?
Right. So Yeah, the first person that came to mind for me was my sister, because in big ways and small ways, our whole life, she's just always been there for me. I remember, like, some of my favorite memories of us are when she was first old enough to babysit me. We're only 2 years apart in age. So for the most part, with kids, those like milestone ages can sometimes make a 2-year gap seem huge. She'd hit like a new level of maturity and I'm still very much a kid type deal. And then other times we were really close because the age is close enough that we were into the same things. But I remember when she was finally old enough that my mom would leave us home alone together. No more babysitter. We don't have to have Nana come over like to watch us, like, which we love Nana. But sometimes we'd get sick of watching Judge Judy all afternoon because when Nana comes over, Nana gets the TV, and it was like, or we'd play Monopoly with my Nana, and she would always make it sad because she'd be like, "I wish this money was real." And it's like, come on, Nana, because we play with Grandma, and Grandma was always the banker, and she was an excellent banker. But when we play with Nana, she just always made it sad. Anyways. So finally, we're old enough to stay home by ourselves. And my sister would always make us, very simple meals. But as a kid, I was like, you can cook. She'd make us Kraft mac and cheese. She'd make us ramen on the stove in the Visionware pots. She'd make us, American chop suey, which, we weren't cooking meat as children, but it would just be elbow noodles in pasta sauce. But I'd be like, it was the best. It was the best. She'd always make it. It was my favorite lunch. She was also very creative with, if we didn't have sweets in the house, she would figure something out. We would have Hershey's syrup on graham crackers as a special treat, like Mom and Dad aren't home. Let's just rifle through the pantry and see what we can make. She just was always a really great babysitter. So from a very young age, she was just always there for me. When I was 18 and I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I, had been baptized. So that meant that I got disfellowshipped, right?
Oh, yeah, I know about
so
this. Yeah, about this.
My sister, though, never officially cut off contact with me. We didn't talk as much for a while because she wasn't supposed to, and I respected that.
That's real.
But it was like, whereas my mom did cut off like full contact with me, my sister really never did. Mm-hmm. And when she left herself several years later, we just kind of picked up where we left off. And now we've been wicked close again ever since. And it's the big things like that where she never completely cut me off when she was, supposed to. Mm-hmm. But also the littlest ways. This past week, this is the dumbest thing ever, but this past week, my sister and I discovered that we're both lactose intolerant, and we discovered that we can have Chobani Greek yogurt. So we have been texting each other every time we try a new flavor to be like, that one's bad, don't buy that one. Like, we're buying different flavors, each of us. And then I'm telling her, like, the tiramisu was ass, don't buy that. And or she's telling me, oh, I got the s'mores one, that was really good. And we've been doing this all week, just going back and forth whenever. And she was texting me, she's like, did you try that one yet? I was like, I haven't tried it yet. And I was like, I'm gonna try it tomorrow. I was like, did you try this? And she's like, no. And just all week, we've been going back and forth with our discoveries on which ones we like, which ones we don't like. It's the littlest things like that, but she is my partner in crime on so many different things. And then including, like you said, Cog, like I can vent to her anytime, any day. She'll listen, she'll sympathize with me. It doesn't matter how busy she is. If I tell her I want to peel this bitch's face off, she's like, who is it? Where is it? Where are we going? Like she's just always, the reality is that she's the much more rational and cool-headed one of the two of us. So she always talks me off the ledge when I say like, I'm going to throttle somebody. She'll start off being like my hype man, and then she knows how to rein it back in. And that's just how we are together. And I hope I do the same for her. I'm always available when she wants to talk as well about what's going on in her life. But she's a great big sister to me. I love that we're still so close, even though we live several states apart. We talk almost every day. Neither of us really like phone calls, though. Like, we're heavily texters, which is perfect. We respect that about each other.
That's cool.
But it just is. We're really close still. It's one of those things that, having like a rough childhood sometimes can drive siblings apart because it's almost like your sibling reminds you of the worst time in your life. For us, it made us a lot closer because there are things that happened in our lives that only the two of us can understand, only the two of us can relate to. And thankfully, that made us a lot closer, even into adulthood. There are times when, like, both of us are trying to do the whole, like, do the therapy thing, talk about your childhood, work through it versus having it just fester inside of you.
Very healthy.
And these like revelations we have, sometimes I'll come home and I'll text her like, man, we talked about this today and it made me think of you, and she'll do the same for me. And it just is. And then we're helping each other in that way too, trying to be less angry adults, less bitter adults, basically, because we have both recognized fully that we would rather let go of all that shit than just keep carrying it forever. But it ain't always easy to do that. So no, it's my sister for sure. I'm very, very blessed that Colin, my husband, is also my best friend. We share a million laughs every day. We get along so well. But when you brought up this topic, my sister just came to mind first, strictly because she's been there my whole life. Even though when I was born, she was upset and told my mom she wanted an older brother. And my mom had to say, well, you're the one who ruined that. And she would tell me that whenever she got mad at me as a kid, she'd always say, I didn't want a little sister. I wanted an older brother. And it'd be like, you were born first. You can't say this. It's like, you should have been the brother then.
That's
and
hilarious.
then she'd get more mad. So when you share a bond with someone like that, it's just like they're your person forever.
Absolutely.
It's her.
No, that's awesome. I love what you said. Obviously with the JW connection, I'm going to start first because, what you said is very real. People don't understand, like, part of the religion is, first of all, I wasn't baptized and you were baptized. So that's a huge deal, right? And then, once you leave the organization, right, what happens, Dagan, is there's this thing called disfellowshipping. And disfellowshipping, no one can talk to you. This is, and like literally family members, your friends, you are cut off. And until, my only issue with it is until whoever deems you as worthy to re-enter, and that could be there's no specified time frame as to when that could happen. So you are literally excommunicated in the presence of others. So the fact really that your sister did that, I know the pressure that she was under, right? I know how that is because you're supposed to, that's your reform period, so to speak, kind of thing. And you're not. So for her to reach out to you in that way is awesome. I did a similar thing, even though I was baptized. I had a friend that was, and I remember I was so angry that, no one's going to talk to him now. Like this, it didn't make any sense. I really struggled with that. So I'm glad you said that. And then the second thing that you said that was really cool with reference to, I think like having that ride or die friend or family member, one of the more important things is a lot of people don't listen or truly have empathy with actually listening and trying to help your problem and your issue and taking it on like their own, you know what I mean, kind of thing. Because there's a lot of people, some people you talk to that are friends and they just want to talk to you about their stuff. And they're not taking a vested interest in you know what I mean? And I love that you said that because that's super important as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, super dope. Definitely wanted to get this over today. I'm very curious here. Just in general, like who's that, ride or die person or family member? Who's that person that, you can count on or just always provide you like the most comfort, And I'm just curious where you go with this.
Yeah, man. I mean, as soon as I knew about this topic, I knew exactly where I had to take it in my heart. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And it was really the first thing that came to my mind. So it's kind of neat. It's one of those things where it's like, wow, this is going to be a genuine take. And I guess something I think about a lot, but I don't ever have the chance to talk about it, which is one of the cool things about this show, I mean, the first thing I'll say though, leading into that is that there is, I guess, a hierarchy of people in our lives, right? Like we all have a number of people in our lives. family, friends, acquaintances, coworkers, all that sort of thing, neighbors. And I guess there is a difference insofar as there are varying levels of love, affection, friendship, all that kind of thing. I love saying ride or die. I love calling it that, Cog, but like, what does it really mean if I think about it? Because we all use that expression. We know what we're saying. But for me, it boils down to somebody who still truly loves you at your worst. They love you when you're the hardest to love, I guess. And they love you and they're there for you with the promise of absolutely nothing in return. You know what I mean? It's a genuine, authentic
100%
love, right? Chips up, chips down, doesn't matter.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's real through and through, out and out love. And the first thing I have to say is I think I'm really lucky to have a good number of those people in my life, genuinely. You know, I'm really blessed in that way. It starts with my mom and dad. You know what I mean? I think both of my parents would literally do anything for me. And I know that love as a parent now, having children of my own. You know, I've been a dad for almost 18 years. I know what that feels like. And that's really the top of the pile, I would say, you know, as far as that goes. My Aunt Joni, you know, one of my mom's younger sisters, just dating back to being a really young kid, it was just a love and a bond with that one specific person where she's one of my best friends. And, you know, I miss her because she moved so far south. And I don't get to talk to her a lot, but I'll get to that. My wife, you know, Helene and I are almost 30 years deep. You know, she is a person who has had to live with me day in and day out for many years. I think sometimes that's it. Listen, I could be easy to love, but I could be tough too. Come on. You don't see that side of Dagster on the podcast, but that Dagster certainly exists. And Helene's like really ride or die. And I think it means a lot with a spouse because, you know what I mean? From day one, all the way 30 years for us. And, you know, there's people out there celebrating 50 years of marriage, 60 years of marriage. Ultimately, though, they're not your blood relation. They're not stuck with you. You know what I mean? So when it's a spouse, I think it's like a friend, but even more so. Like the fact that that person would stick with you through thick and thin and really love you genuinely means a lot. You know what I mean? We're not blood. Now we have kids together. We have certain bonds, you know, that are kind of, you know, we'll always be inextricably linked no matter what happens. But that, you know, I think of Helene, I think of my best friend, PJ. You guys know PJ a little bit. You know, he was just, it was one of those friends like you're describing your friend, Cog, you know, bonding, your Connecticut friend and bonding over Nas and all that. PJ and I just had a thing. Like there was a chemistry there. You know what I mean? It's not romantic, but it is bromantic. You know what I mean? It's a bromance. You know what I mean? And the fact of like, there's just something there that's indefinable, a love that just goes down to our fabric. Like we were meant to be. It's like a great love in a relationship, only it's a friendship. And his parents, dude, were, I mean, you know, it's like one of those things where I feel like I don't even deserve to find people like this in my life. I feel the same way about my in-laws, actually, where I've had these surrogate parents in my life that they didn't have to claim me. You know what I mean? And from very early on, like really loved me, like really genuinely I saw in their actions, you know, they would just do anything for me. And they're both gone now, PJ's parents, but shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Williams. I mean, they were wonderful people. And then I think of Colin, you know, that's another guy, my brother, he'd be there, drop of a hat. You know what I mean? One of those people where, yeah, we have different personalities. We have a lot of history and obviously those origins. So we're tied together, but maybe a little less demonstrative as far as his love. He's not as warm and fuzzy as me. He's not going to hug you and kiss you as fast as maybe I, but the love is there. You know what I mean? It's to the same degree. He just shows it different. But when it boils down to brass tacks, he's one of those top dudes I know is always going to be in my corner. You know, and you know, it's one of those people too. And I think about this with Colin and other people. It's like, they're going to back you when they know you're 100% wrong. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It just doesn't matter. That love.
Like,
you know what I'm saying?
Going down, I'm down. I know what you mean. Yep,
That's it. He's going down. He's going down. If I'm going down, he's coming with me. That type of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, I guess with brothers, blood is thicker than water, but I don't even know if it matters, you know, because I have brothers that aren't related, you know, like PJ, and I think it's the same, a very similar level of love. So I'm lucky to have that. Yeah. But all that to say, and I admire all those people I just mentioned, and anybody who has that love for somebody where it's like that ride or die person's always going to be in your corner no matter what. I wonder how many people consider me that thing for them, because I think I fall short a lot. You know what I mean? I think I want to work harder to be that guy for people. And this topic is a good reminder of that. You know, for me personally, I tend to get very distracted. And I've definitely over years have had this attitude of, okay, well, they'll be there when things ease up. You know, that person I'm thinking about, I don't have time for them right now, but when things get less busy, I'll reach out and we'll have dinner or we'll talk on the phone or we'll catch up. And they love me, so they'll understand. And time flies out the window while you're having that attitude. And I've been guilty of that. You know, I mean, with friends, with siblings, as a son, maybe not so much as a husband and a dad. I think I'm pretty present, but we're also in the same physical space. But other than that, I think in every regard with my Aunt Joni, I've just been really bad at sort of not even keeping in touch, but keeping that relationship healthy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Doing my part to keep that relationship in good standing. And I take advantage of, I think in you know, it's unintentionally, but I think I take advantage of people's love and just expect them to sort of wait for me whenever that moment's going to be. And then that one thing leads to another thing. And then I'm busy and then I'm running around. And a lot of it has to do with my career and how crazy that is. And meanwhile, you know what I mean? I think I thank God for these people and their understanding and their patience, because I think if they weren't made of such stern stuff, I think I would jeopardize these relationships. And who knows what the expiration date on that is? Am I pushing it too far? So that's what I think about with your topic most, Cog, is yes, thankfulness, super grateful for the people I have, but I want to reciprocate. You know what I mean? And I don't know that I do. You know what I mean? I think when push comes to shove, most of those people know that, you know, I would drop everything, but do they? I don't know. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to get too sappy about it, but I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Like, I really got to make an effort to be a better brother, a better son, a better nephew. Like, it's just like, I gotta sort of take action and put my money where my mouth is with that. And I don't always, you know what I mean? Again, it's just like, just that attitude of like, not even dismissive, but just like, all right, they'll be there tomorrow. You know what I mean? And then how much, you know, who knows what happened? We're not guaranteed anything. I'm promised. Not, they're not, you know what I mean? And who wants to regret, man? I know I've said that on the podcast before. That's an emotion I don't want to go. That's a road I don't want to go down.
No, that's real.
You know?
No, it's real. I love what you said. What I took from what you said, Thing, is that I love what you said about hierarchy, because even though this topic is ride or die, and you know, the person who's, you know, you consider up there, but there is a hierarchy for me also. And you got me thinking, like, I don't want to be dismissive, you know, of all these amazing people in my life, and there's only just one. So I know you're absolutely right. You know, I just got me thinking about, you know, King, and he's like my guardian in a way, and he's like my biggest fan, but in also the support structure, like, you know, growing up, you know, and obviously he's my cousin, but at the same time, it's just like, we almost have like a brotherhood. It's closer than any other thing. And we were inseparable to the point, like, you know, my family would try to break us apart. Like, all right, I think he's got too much of an influence on you. You know, that kind of thing. Like, they try to stop it. Everyone would try to stop it at some point. And I think about Saab, you know, obviously someone, you know, from the, you know, since I know since third grade, and his friendship is different. He's very discerning, but he's one of those type of people you don't have to be around all the time. But you know, when you actually reconnect, it's like you haven't missed a beat. You ever had that friend? Like, it's just like
100%.
Boom. I mean, he went away to boarding school we lost touch for a while, and he came back. And actually during that time, I got really close to his brother, shout out to Kabatsu. But you know, when he came back, it was like nothing changed. You know
no time had passed.
Nothing changed. And then what I like about Addict is his empathy. He's very empathetic. He always that check-in. Yo, you all right, man? What's going on? And
that's cool.
You know, like he doesn't get enough credit because you don't see that side of him, but he has a very warm side. It's a person who's more recent in my life and who I deal with on a constant basis because of the podcast. I have tons of friends, and I'm very blessed. So I'm glad you mentioned that because it got me thinking. Like, yeah, there's tons of people that I know I could count on and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I like what you said in that respect, and flipping it around. I definitely like what you said about the self-reflection about, are you the ride or die for someone else? And that, not to sound egotistical, that I could confidently say I am a ride or die for a lot of people, because I do tend to put others above myself or think about, hey, yo, we gonna start. I got you. We gonna go pick whatever we got to do right now.
That's awesome.
I'm that guy. And people kind of love me for that. They really, even sometimes people who, I don't want to say they don't deserve it, but they don't know me as long. But if I feel like, man, that person, I think he's going through something, let me check in. Let's see what's happening here. And I think I've always had that reputation of being a person, who's kind and empathetic and discerning. And like, at least at the very minimum, people felt, I'll tell you this, people always have felt safe to confide in me.
I could
and
see
I
that.
Always honor that because they know it's going to stay here. I don't care who you are. If you trusted me enough to tell me whatever you told me and you split, then I'm going to honor that, and I got you, and it's all good. And I think I've been fortunate to cultivate that over the years. I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, but you put it out. You know what I mean? Like I really admire that with somebody like you, Kyle, because it's very unselfish. You know what I mean? It's very, very, I mean, to put yourself above others, and have that just natural component to your personality where you're able to make that sacrifice without even articulating it that way. Like for you, it's just your nature. It's just who you are.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'll shout that out to the JWs. I will say the core principles do help you become a good person. I know I felt like this episode I've kind of ragged, but like I always tell my mom, because my mom is, she's still devout, and those conversations will come up, and then Micah, you'll appreciate this. Everything is Jehovah's will. You get through on this thing, and you always get the spiritual talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying? Sure. But at the end of the day, it's funny because it's like, she cares, but I know it helped me form who I am. And I told her that because I know me and her, we had that separation when I left the organization kind of thing, because they were grooming me to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
Minister, you know how many meetings there is, Micah. Is Tuesday, book study, days. Thursday, ministerial, this service school, and Sunday, it's a thing, right? And I remember when I separated, I'm like, look, this is not my life. But I always told her, I said, I don't want you to feel like I didn't appreciate everything that it made me and what the core principles of why I am who I am today. I do thank you, and I do thank that JW for that. And she's always, that was like our piece. That was my olive branch, and we had that respect there. So yeah, that's why I think of the foundation to that.
That's dope.
And that's important because I had mentioned that to someone recently what I dislike about the organization as a whole is some of the more, cruelty type stuff like this fellowshipping, for example. But the reality is, like, I am glad that as a kid, I genuinely never touched drugs until, I never touched weed until college. I'm glad that I wasn't, I remember friends in high school getting into fist fights over boys, that type of stuff, and we just weren't allowed to date. I am glad for a lot of that stuff of it did just keep you out of trouble, and not in the way of like, I don't feel like I missed out on doing drugs in high school. I'm glad I didn't do that. Like, I am glad I didn't get into drinking at 16 like a lot of my friends were, who are now, like, I have some friends who are like, they're sober, which is excellent for them. But the fact that we're only 31 and they've had to make that choice at this young age because they started drinking so early.
Yeah.
It's like, I am happy for things I didn't get into because of that. I always just tell my sister, though, why couldn't it have just been a normal church? Because I had other friends who went to normal church and they also didn't drink and they didn't do this and this and this. And I'm like, I mean, we could have just gone to the regular church and had the same results probably.
But Micah, bad association spoils useful violence. I
knew
you like that one. Young people ask. Oh
my God. Like my mom's go-to line whenever we were being bad as kids was "Get behind me, Satan." Ooh. Like that was her go-to. And like you knew she was mad when she'd pull that one out there. And it's just like, no, my God, the constant Bible verses instead of actual advice.
Now let's go to the Bible now. Let's go.
That's badass. That sounds like Gandalf or something. That's pretty cool.
It was real.
It was something.
Wow. Positives and negatives, though. I get it. You know what? It sounds like I'm very critical of Roman Catholic because I've been Roman Catholic for so long. And I'll tell anybody who will listen, like, this is what should change about the church. You know, I have my issues, just like you guys have your issues with growing up Jehovah. But it sounds like there's a lot of good. And if they could just simplify by just letting kids have fun, because kids don't understand. They just want to do what their contemporaries do. They want to play with toys. They want to play with video games. They want birthday parties, all those kind of things. It's too hard as a kid. It's not even peer pressure at that age. It's just that kids just want to do the fun. They just want to have fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they could probably solve a lot of problems just by, letting kids do those things.
I've heard over the years they have softened. Like my mom always give me,
that's interesting.
Now they allow this now. Like she'll tell me, like,
okay,
the hope is for me to always come back in her mind.
Yes. They let you wear. They let women wear pants this year. Yeah. This is huge. This is huge because I remember my mom always saying, like, at my grandma, who's not a witness, my grandma went to a regular church, and she'd always say it was wrong that women wore pants to church. Now they allow women to wear pants. This was a new change this year, and men are allowed to have beards now, which was never allowed. You could only have a mustache.
Allowed. Yeah, only mustache.
And so these two huge changes now. And it is definitely, you can tell on the outside that it's like they're trying to retain numbers by making it just easier. Like, okay, maybe we shouldn't just let women wear pants, seeing as how it's 2024 and everyone else wears pants.
Just
right?
easing up a little bit.
They wear pants when they leave, so, who cares? And yeah, the beard thing, the funniest thing about the beards though, Cog, you'll remember like my book of Bible stories and all that. Everyone has beards. Yep. Everyone has beards in Jesus's time. And if Jesus is the greatest guy ever, then why can't I have a beard too? Like he has one. It never made sense.
That's a good
Only
point.
On that level of like, dude, Jesus always has a beard. They never have him clean shaven.
And even in the illustrations in the books, they would show the apostles and all of like with the. You're right. I just thought about that.
And I'm like, dude. So like, why can't? Not that it was a problem for me. It would be a problem if I had a beard for sure. But it's like, dude. So what gives? Because like these are the greatest men in the world. And they all have beards. The angels have beards. Like all the illustrations of the angels, everybody, they all beards. And then they're like, you can't have one.
You can't do that.
The JWs sound more and more like the Steinbrenner Yankees to me every 2 seconds. Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what this is.
How would George would say? Like everyone had to be clean cut, right? Yeah, right?
Yeah. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Steinbrenner wasn't playing. If you wasn't
he wasn't
shave all that. Was it Randy Johnson had to do? Was he over?
Everybody,
Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson, Johnny Damon, like people that came to, Red Sox had to come through. It was like a culture shock for them. It's like, all right, I guess I'm wearing the interlocking NY now. I got to shave the beard. And you know what? Those changes that, it sounds funny, but like those long-standing traditions that they change, it sounds ridiculous to an outsider. Like, oh, you could have a beard now. You could wear pants now. That's a big deal.
Huge deal.
Oh, it is causing some issues. I know people who are still on the inside, let's say. Same. And there are some people who are very upset about the changes, like older people who are like, this is wrong, we shouldn't be wearing pants. Like there are some old people who have a big problem with it. And then there are younger people who are just kind of like, all right, yeah, I'll just, you make this a little bit easier. I'll keep going once a week and whatever. But it is interesting to see the shifts over the years because I left in 2011. So it's been a while.
Wow. And 15 years almost. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time now. And to get these updates periodically from my friends on the inside is like, huh. Very interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, they're doing Zoom call meetings too. I was like, what?
Whoa.
Dude,
The
like that was
memorial on a Zoom call. I was like, I would be threatened wherever I was. Like, you better not miss the memorial. You better be there. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it would, even when I was out, like that was the olive branch I would have to extend. She's like, it's only once a year. You got to go. Kind of thing. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, it's a Zoom call now? Look what's happening here.
How do we pass around the crackers and wine? Oh, the grape juice. It's because it's not wine. They do the grape juice, the special juice. But it's like, Dagan, the memorial is the only sort of holiday they have.
Okay.
And it is a somber and sad day. Like you put on your best outfit. It's kind of like our Easter, where in terms of everyone would wear their best outfit. You would put on your new shoes. It was a nighttime meeting, so it was a little more special. They had meetings at night regularly, but this one was like at a specific time, so it had to be after sundown. But it was a somber and sad occasion. A lot of people would cry, and it's like, this is our like one sort of holiday, and it's very sad. And instead of communion, we would pass around the unleavened bread and the glass of special grape juice. I don't remember why, like what it was. Somebody always had to source it every year.
To signify the wine.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And someone had to source it every year, this very specific juice that they would buy. Like it was always, some higher up's wife would always have to go find it. And, one of them would make the bread every year.
Wow.
And you pass it around. You don't eat it unless you're special. That's a whole other thing. But you just pass it around. And I remember as a kid one time I was scared I would spill the juice. So I kept my hands in my lap and my mom was like furious. But it's like, I just didn't want to spill it. Like I'm 6. I was afraid of spilling because it's in like a nice wine glass.
That glass was lit. Yo, it was ornate.
And it's got to make it the whole way around. It has to make it all the way through.
The whole congregation, everyone got to touch this thing.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was just like, I'm a responsible child. I'll look at it, pass by like the little sushi buffets in Japan where it goes by on the conveyor belt. Right. Oh, no. My mom took my hands, put it on the cup. It's like, it's high stakes. It's a high stakes church.
A lot of pressure.
It's the pressure that you could really scar kids with stuff like that. I remember my son, in Roman Catholic religion, you receive communion when you're 8, and then you could go not until then can you go up for the host, and it used to be the wine, but the wine's not a thing since COVID. And you go up and you receive the host at the end of Mass and you put it in your mouth or whatever. One of his first Masses post-communion where he could start going up, he got nervous, I guess, and dropped the host on the floor. And he thought the best solution would be to pick it up really quick and eat it anyway. And I think it damaged him a little bit. I think just that pressure, feeling like everybody's watching, the way he reacted, I think he's a little gun shy now.
Yeah, I dropped Jesus on the floor. Like it's a big deal. Like he made a clutch move right there. I think I would have done the same. I've always wanted to try those wafers. I know everyone says they're no good. I just want to know. I've just always wanted to have one.
They designed it to taste like nothing. That they finally designed a thing. It's like Willy Wonka magic, but the wrong way. It's like some lab in New Jersey invented something to taste like nothing, and that's exactly what it is. Now, I make fun of my son every single Sunday for it, so perhaps I'm the one doing, like, don't drop it, dude. Don't drop it.
Hilarious.
I think, yeah, dude. It's so, it doesn't even matter what religion you belong to. You just, something about the whole thing, the rules, the pageantry, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Some things seem right. Some things seem like they should be updated. Like I gotta say, it's pretty entertaining actually. If you just look at it from that point of view, sometimes it's frustrating because it's like, just evolve, like let Catholic priests get married. Perhaps there won't be these, molestation scandals anymore, things that just make sense. Yeah. Like let's age this in the right direction. Let's be on the right side of history here. Let's allow gay marriage, there's stuff like that, Mm-hmm. But then sometimes if you just look at through a comedic lens, it's like, you just walk away shaking your head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did you see the Vatican's new anime character? And it's like
we hear what you
want. We hear everything you want. How about this? And it's this like little anime kid.
Is this real?
I believe so.
I gotta look this up because I heard about this, but I haven't seen it.
I mean, it's adorable. First of all, this to be in their like little mascot, but it's like I don't understand what's happening. So it's Italian for light. Is it Luce? It's Luce.
This is what I read. Yeah. Yep. Luce. Yeah.
It's adorable, first of all.
Oh, it is really cute. I did see this. It looks like a Sanrio character, really, right?
She kind of looks like Six from Little Nightmares because she has like this like yellow rain slicker on, but it's just like, oh my God, this is it's kind of like the JWs letting women wear pants. It's like all the changes people want to see, and they're like, how about this? Pants. And it's all right.
Be careful searching this. There's already deviant art. I don't even want to look at this. All right, so I don't even want to stop it. How already? There's a whole like deviant art, like infinite page. Oh, come on. Man. All right, shout out Luce. The actual Luce is really cute.
It is.
Just watch the deviant art stuff.
No doubt.
They were just asking for it with that, though. Come on. Cog.
Yes.
This all goes back to you, my friend. Did we do your topic justice?
Appreciate it. Love the ride or die stuff. So always good to hear the stories and perspectives. So yes, I am satiated.
That was a good one.
Yes.
That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'm just going to bring up the rear with my topic, a timely one, as I emailed you. I wanted to talk to you guys post-mortem about the Tyson Jake Paul fight. This sensationally overhyped thing that left a little of us, most of us flat, little anticlimactic, maybe we could say. But let's start at the top before I pass it over to you guys. So Netflix hosted this huge, super hyped, must-watch, massive mainstream event that seemed like, oddly, what was interesting to me about it from the start was that it seemed like almost everybody was invested in this, like a shocking number of people. I wasn't a boxing fan growing up, and we'll get into pop culture a little bit, of course, because we're talking about Tyson. But my nearest view of boxing, besides, growing up in the 70s and 80s with Rocky, the Rocky franchise, and Raging Bull, and, that sort of thing, movies. Shout out to the Creed movies. They're wonderful. That came much later. But was my two uncles, my Uncle John, a.k.a. Uncle Ja, and Uncle Mike and Aunt Joni were huge boxing fans. So back in the 80s into the 90s, when there was a bout of any significance, of any consequence, you would get pay-per-view, of course, HBO, and you would watch the fight. And they would have a little party. They'd make food or get catered food, have snacks, and it was a thing. With the three of them specifically, my grandpa would be there sometimes. He was less into it, but just as part of the festivities or whatever. But I was never a huge fan, But now with this thing leading up, and of course it was really hyped and it was dragged out because Tyson had his ulcer and he had his medical stuff going on. So the whole thing became protracted. But really, to me, it was like this sort of event had this huge cross-generational appeal. Very clever from Netflix's perspective. People that knew Tyson from his prime, people that grew up with Tyson, who was one of the great fighters and one of the great athletes of the 80s and 90s. The younger people that grew up with Jake Paul, and the legions of onlookers that, I guess, understandably so, wanted to see what happens when you put two people 30 years apart in the boxing ring together. It was like this rubbernecking, watching a car wreck thing of like, what's going to happen here? This could be, how can I not watch this? So it seemed like the whole planet was captivated, right? And then this thing finally happened. The fight itself got drawn out that night. They went on, they got in the ring together 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. It was ridiculous from Dallas. And they had this fight that, spoilers, did not go the way people thought it would go, however that was, right? Huge gambling sensation, lots and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. And I'll tell you, going into it, I have to tell you, I know like 20 minutes before we did the show today, I had to research Jake Paul because I knew he was a famous YouTuber. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I'm way too old. And I knew his name being bandied about when my kids were younger. I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. But beyond that, I didn't really know he was a YouTube star of the level he is, and then Vine, and then he was on a Disney Channel show. I didn't know any of that. I knew he was a kind of a younger pop culture sensation, but I didn't realize he was to the level he was, really. Even post-fight, I still didn't know that. And then, of course, I knew Tyson, but I went in rooting for Mike Tyson. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I grew up with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on the NES. He was, to me, it was like that type of thing where it's like athlete meets entertainer, because obviously up there with Muhammad Ali probably is one of the great fighters of all time. And a lot of people that know more about boxing would know more about this, but transcended into pop culture sensation because of his look, because of his anger, because of his attitude, because of his hijinks. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Growing up in New York, we would hear like Tyson would drive a Bentley to a deli in Queens or Brooklyn, triple park it. Who's going to tell him no, right? Mm-hmm. Leave it there. He would go to nightclubs at night. I remember, like in the 90s going, I wasn't a big club kid, but a lot of my friends were. And I remember going to places like the Tunnel and stuff like that. And I remember hearing stories that he would just be out and about on the club scene, Limelight and everything, just looking to fight bouncers.
Yes.
Like terrifying people with him, with his entourage, everything like that. So he was, the consummate entertainer in that you never knew what he was getting. Of course, eventually he bit Holyfield's ear off. Like he was like this dude, like you couldn't, anything concerning Tyson, you had to witness that type of thing. But I remember thinking going into it, like, all right, Tyson's just got to connect. I didn't know very much about Jake Paul. I still know he's got one of the most devastating uppercuts of all time, Tyson. So I'm thinking, all right, this will be interesting despite the age difference. This is going to be really fun to watch. But I remember about 5 minutes before the fight, Netflix broadcasted this sort of Jake Paul clip show highlight reel of his fights. Now, I had heard in passing from guys like Joe Rogan and other experts, like Jake Paul's not a pretender. He's the real deal. Like he's beat solid MMA guys and everything like that. So it's not like I thought Jake Paul was a joke. But when I saw that reel, I was like, oh my God, this guy is going to kill Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is a dead man. This is going to be, then I started to get worried. I went from, oh, come on, Tyson, to, oh no, real quick. Yeah. And that was my attitude going into the fight. And then in the fight, we got the most pedestrian, boring, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are claiming staged. I'm not sure, but it seemed like Jake Paul was very reserved. And again, this is knowing very little about boxing. Seemed like Jake Paul was very reserved and holding back. And it seemed like Tyson was just pure, this is a madman that was on the offensive every time I've ever seen him fight. That was just curled up, defending his upper and just in a defensive posture the entire fight. So a letdown, to say the least. I just wanted to toss it over to you guys for your thoughts. Cog, I'll start with you. We've never talked about boxing before. I suspect you know more than me. But what did you watch? What was your take? Leading up to it, what did you think? Did you actually have money down? Anywhere you want to take it. But I definitely, and this is a timely one, but I definitely want to talk to you about your thoughts on it, because I've talked to very few people about it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we brought this up. Yeah, this fight actually was on my birthday. This was the end of my birthday after dinner and a couple of places, and this was the post game, and I was like, nice. We went to a bar. We're in the city, and I think the lead up coming into obviously when the fight was announced, I'm like you, Dig, in the sense that I have to like defer to Addict because he's younger than me. Like, okay, give me who's this Jake Paul kid? Like before, like because I know of him now, but like his history before, like you said, this YouTube star pops, like he's a mythical figure for this generation, right?
Yeah. And
I'm like, all right. And then I have followed his amateur boxing career, whatever we want to call it. Well, he's not professional, and I watched it. I'm like, okay. One, he has utilized his I think he's a genius. Don't get me wrong. I think he has utilized his platform to now get into boxing, which he is competent. I'm not going to sit there and say he is not competent. The thing was, everything, in my opinion, that he had put together, which is fighting all these MMA fighters. And people get caught up with the name, right? People are like, yo, he fought Anderson Silva, the arguably the greatest mixed martial arts of all time. He got this who's who of aging on the decline stars. Now, on paper, it looks phenomenal, but the reality is two things. One, people are on the decline. Father Time catches up to everyone. Two, the reason why I got frustrated is because I know, and I have this discussion with King all the time, he's more the boxing guy than I am. I'm actually the guy who watches MMA. So we know that one of the things is if it's in a controlled space, a boxer is going to tear apart an MMA guy. His natural instincts is if it's basically an MMA guy has all his tools taken away from him. He cannot take you to the ground. He can't do elbows. So literally the majority of his offense is negated against the boxer.
It's a great point.
Whereas the boxer, he is supremely skilled in the hands with this particular art. Right. And it's a different level of cardio. It's such a beautiful art. So that's what's happening here. But salute to Jake Paul's team. They market and he's beaten these guys and he's done it. So that was my knowledge of him coming in. Tyson, I'm like, all right, like you said, mythical Mike Tyson, the man who puts fear in everyone. And I ain't gonna lie, like at first I'm like, damn, Mike's gonna get hustled. Like, but I heard what was announced, I'm like, But then I thought about it. I'm like, no, Mike has tremendous experience. He's and he's the bigger man, so to speak, right? So I'm like, hey, if he slips one in here, it could get interesting, right? So there's a part of me that I wanted to see this car crash. I needed to know, right, what would happen, because the conventional wisdom says Father Time. I don't care who he is, but there's another part of me that's like, wait a minute, no, Mike is a heavyweight, and Mike instinctually. And then we saw the training footage before, and it looked vicious, and I'm like.
It really did.
So in my mind, this is how it could go. 2 to 3 rounds, right? Mike has two to 3 rounds of 60. How old is he now? I forgot how old Mike is.
I think he's 58.
58. I said 58. He got 2 rounds of 58. He could give us 2. But after 2, I think his chances severely diminish. And that's how I went going into it. So now we get into, the fight. And first of all, I got to laugh because shout out to Netflix for attempting to pull this off. Like this, to have this on Netflix is a big deal. Like, streaming service, technically free for so many people. Like if they continue to do this would be massive for them to host fights and stuff like that.
I agree.
The funny thing is nothing more hilarious than being in a bar and you see it buffering and the whole bar throws their drinks like,
that was awful.
In the middle of the fight, like 2 separate times. They clearly was not prepared for the level of engagement this thing was going to happen. So I'm laughing. I'm like, yo, this is wild. We're watching boxing and Netflix in a bar right now. This is crazy, New York City. So I'm laughing.
I watched it pixelated the entire fight. The entire fight. I was watching 8-bit. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul.
You gotta respect the technical bravado because they had to know how much engagement they were going to get, and still this thing. But you said it was perfect. You said it perfectly. Dave. It says that it was the must-watch fight because the generational gap, boxers, the YouTube. It's so much going on here. So it really was perfectly put together. But now we get to the fight itself. So the first round, I looked at Mike and I'm like, wow, he moves fast. He's aggressive. He's closing the distance. What you're supposed to do? I'm like, this could be a thing. Then as the fight went on, I'm like, why is Mike not doing anything? Like I understand Father Time. And I don't want to take anything away from Jake Paul. Like there were times when he was hitting Tyson later on in the fight. I'm like, this could get spooky. So I don't want to disrespect him. But to me, and I'm not the conspiracy theorist at all. I never really get into that type of talk. My feeling was just like, there felt like there was some form of a gentleman's agreement. Because even when Mike Tyson fought Roy Jones recently in an exhibition a couple years back, hey, we're not going to go really hard at headshots. Mike was going to the body a lot on Roy Jones, and he was very active. And I get it. He's much older than he was at that fight. But looking at it, and I've seen some clips on YouTube where he's swinging, he half swings, he stops.
Yeah.
Then he's biting his glove. I've never heard of this. Why are you biting your glove? And to me, is that some form of mechanism or anxiety because you are not allowed to go as full tilt as you want? I don't know.
I was so worried for Jake Paul's ears. Yeah. Let's be honest. You know what I mean?
And here's the thing that really baffled me. You could say Father Time and he's slow. That's fair. But never have I watched a Mike Tyson fight and he's staying at 3-person distances away from the opponent in a defensive posture. He will just normally just bull rush, at least get close. Even if he doesn't connect or anything, that's what I was expecting. So that's what threw me off. And I was just so disgusted. I'm like, I got finessed. These guys got a damn gentleman's agreement. Mike is going to be richer than he ever was. He's probably willing to take the financial thing. I mean, these guys made money.
Oh, man. Huge purses.
Oh, the purses.
Which I understand.
So look.
How can you say no?
There's just a part of me, Dave. I hate them. I'm not a sore loser. I'm not a person. I didn't have money on the fight. I'm not even the big Tyson guy. I used to be a Holyfield guy. So I don't have any stake in it to that level. But I looked at it and I couldn't, in good conscience, say that everything here was 100% on the up and up from a pure competitive, leave it all in the ring aspect. That's what I got of it. And I was just like, damn, they got me. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to watch it again unless it's another car crash.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. You could just watch it anytime. You know what's funny about it, Cog? You almost have to, I never hear anybody saying this, so I just thought of it myself. You got to give Tyson a nod just for being that guy in his sport, so dominant.
Yes.
And one of the best who ever lived, that could stand in the ring with somebody 30 years his junior. You know what I mean? Absolutely. You think about, I wouldn't want to play basketball against Jordan. I wouldn't want to golf against Tiger Woods. And Tyson is that guy. There would be no other boxer who you could even put in that situation, as ridiculous as it is.
You're
right.
Micah.
Yeah. Sorry. No, go ahead, please.
My final point before we pass to Micah.
Please take your time.
Just the way he looked is a testament to his physical condition at that age. That you're right, David. That part was he looked good. Like from a step, I was like, wow, for a 50-something-year-old, you looking fantastic at this point. So that's the only part I will say. I give you that for sure.
I felt bad for you were saying those sizzle reels of him training, of Tyson training. I felt bad for those guys holding the bags. You know, that guy looked like he was going to get. You get his liver exploded. Like, I was like, dude, fucking ease up on that guy. He's as old as you are.
Oh, yeah.
Not older. That's Micah. I want to hand this over to you, but I'm just thinking. I thought about something as I hand this topic and put this in your hands. Is Tyson fighting Jake Paul the same as Micah fighting a newborn? Think about it from that perspective.
No, so an interesting thing being my age for this. Do I know who Mike Tyson is? Of course. Mike Tyson, huge name. But in perspective, his last fight was in 2005? And I would have been 12. So I did not grow up with Mike Tyson in his absolute I mean, he was in his prime, but he was the tail end of his career, not as active in the fighting scene. And also wasn't allowed to watch boxing for the violence reasons, of course. So it's I knew who he was. I'm familiar with because he bit someone's ear off. And there's a lot of jokes about that. The pop culture Mike Tyson is actually who I'm familiar with because it's one of those things that was that became a sitcom trope, the jokes about the ear always in cartoons, everything. There'd always be jokes like that. And that's what I knew him for. I'm also too old to know who Jake Paul is. I'm above the cutoff for that. I know who he is because I believe he's the guy who went to the suicide forest in Japan and took a video. I think that's him. Might have been his brother. Right. I don't know.
I think you're right. I forgot about that.
I think he's 27. We're only a few years apart in age, but this is what I mentioned with my sister and I is that there are just levels of, we might only be a few years apart, but in terms of pop culture references, it's I don't know who this guy is. You're mentioning he's on Disney, and I'm I didn't know anything about that. It's just I have no familiarity with this man. But it's like when this fight was announced, I thought, man, it'd be really cool if Mike Tyson won this. Once again, saw his training montages. I was like, he looks pretty quick to me. But of course, as Cog mentioned, you put him up against someone that much younger, and it's like, yeah, he's quick for a 58-year-old. He's faster than my dad would be, I think, but he's not faster than this kid. Because the whole time, I did not watch the fight. I was following the updates on Twitter. Because Colin had said, do you want to get Netflix and watch the fight? And I said, no, boxing's yucky. Because I respect the sport. And like, I have heavy respect for MMA, but I'm like, it's gross. I saw like the aftermath of the women's boxing match, and this woman's eyebrow was like split open, and I was like, I didn't want to see that. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid, as I'm scrolling through Twitter.
That turned out to be the main event, that fight, by the way. That was 10 times more entertaining than the Tyson fight.
There's a reason I like WWE. And it's because even when they used to like cut themselves with a little razor and like bleed all over the place, it just wasn't. It's like the reality is that it was like a pinprick wound, not an eyebrow cut in half. I was like, this boxing's too real. All right. So we didn't watch the fight live, but we were following the updates. Okay. And it was sad seeing everyone say, man, Mike Tyson's really slow, because the power is there. That if somebody tied up Jake Paul, Mike Tyson could kill him in one punch, but he has to catch him first. All right. And it was just the speed. It's like, and as disappointing, like Cog said, while it's disappointing that it seems like there clearly was some sort of agreement, like, don't kill Mike Tyson, please. It's also kind of like, but what did people, now granted, it wasn't a $50 pay-per-view. It was a Netflix subscription was the buy-in price. But it was like people paid to see this, and there's definitely some sort of agreement, like, don't knock him out, all right? Whatever you do, don't knock Mike Tyson out with the first punch. Don't knock him out at all. He's old. He might just collapse. And there is a disappointment there for real fans of the sport who are saying, like, this definitely wasn't on the level in that respect. This definitely seems like someone was holding punches so that they wouldn't kill Mike Tyson. Now, maybe for better or worse, maybe, if he had George Foreman in his sights next, maybe they won't do that now. Because I think that probably was the next one in line. He's like, I'm coming after you, George Foreman. I could see that. 75 years old. He's got the grill. He's coming back into the ring.
You said with the grill.
I did. Gotta have the grill. You 100% have to have the grill. I love it.
But this was interesting in another respect, just because Mike Tyson, everyone, he's mellowed out over the years. Everyone knows he has his pet pigeons. He did that really funny cartoon with Norm Macdonald. That is just like it, which I love that show. If you haven't seen Mike Tyson Mysteries, it's hysterical. But it's also a lot of it making fun of himself, and it really flips your perception of him. How he used to be the hothead, how he used to be the guy that if you said one thing to him, he'd knock you out. And here's this show that is heavily making fun of himself. Mm-hmm. And so then to hear he's getting back in the boxing ring, and it's almost like he's like some Zen type figure now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was the weirdest part. It's like this guy who had the little cartoon with Norm Macdonald making fun of himself. He has his pet pigeons. Like, this guy's going to box again. We got to talk about the butt cheeks, though. We got to talk about him getting interviewed.
What happened there?
And just turning around, ass out. That was, I was losing my mind seeing all the tweets for that. Like, I was like, now I wish we had subscribed, because I don't know what the hell's going on.
Dude. Absolutely hilarious.
Hilarious.
And the funniest thing about all of this is that clearly this wasn't supposed to be funny. But the major takeaway for so many of us was like, well, the fight sucked, but it was really funny. Like, we got to see butt cheeks. We got to see this, like
hijinks.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't supposed to be a Three Stooges comedy hour, but at least we got something out of it. And Mike Tyson, the payout is it's crazy. Crazy how much money they made off of this sham of an event. People upset about the buffering, saying that the results of each round were spoiled because it refreshed on Twitter before it refreshed on their TV.
That's true. I'm so glad you guys brought that up.
Disaster.
That was a big part of the night. You know what's funny about it too? I think Netflix actually left money on the table because I think they could have said, we're going to start this thing with these live events. Used to be pay-per-view. This is the modern version of it. $4 if you have a Netflix subscription, $8 if you don't. Yeah. And I think people would have paid. And I think, thank God they didn't, because I think the event turned out to be such a letdown. It wasn't really their fault, I guess. Yeah. But I'm glad they didn't do that, because I think the backlash would have been insane.
I agree, Dag. Yeah, I think that. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll let you finish, but
no.
I agree, because when I heard it was announced that Netflix was going to do it, my natural pay-per-view inclinations kicked in. I'm like, okay, they're going to charge an amount, even though it's on the subscription. You're going to have to pay a premium to get access to said event.
That's what I thought.
So to your point, I was shocked they left money on the table, because I think the interest was so high, people were going to pay for that. So, but you made another fantastic point, is maybe the fact that it's a streaming service, maybe they're looking at it from a liability standpoint. If we don't have the optimal performance and we charge people, then we're going to have to get that money back or something contractually in that standpoint. So you made a good point. I was wondering why they didn't charge, because I thought this was easy money stuff left on the table for this.
Yeah. You know what's funny too? I just thought about this. I didn't even realize these two things were linked, but the animation community is in an uproar right now because I guess Netflix is taking down a lot of content forever, supposedly. A lot of that happens to be animated television, movies, and their interactive stuff. And the creators of these things are like, these things are going to be lost. Like, Netflix isn't even accommodating the people who made them to say, we'll get you everything so you could have it in perpetuity, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that might have been a direct result of not having the capacity to stream this live event to however many millions and millions of people. The other thing is, I think going in, it was like, okay, the age disparity is insane. Even, I know Tyson's one of the greatest who ever lived. He was this one punch wrecking machine in the 80s and into the 90s. Absolutely devastating, would horrify opponents, let alone club bouncers and, people that are just having a drink at the bar where Mike Tyson walks in looking for a fight. But the thing is, even if he didn't bring that old school fighting, boxing prowess that he once had, I just thought we get that wild card, ass cheeks out, chaotic, Tyson, where it's like, I've heard recently, like guys like Joe Rogan, who interviewed him relatively recently, say like, I was afraid, like I wanted to make sure I was sitting far enough away, because if you say anything to offend him, you don't know what he's going to do. He's erratic.
Yes.
And I thought we were going to get that kind of energy. Now we did get a brand of crazy Tyson. It's just not the way we all expected. He was biting his boxing. I mean, he wasn't biting his boxing gloves sometimes. He had a clear biting fixation where he couldn't stop biting his boxing glove. Like, he looked better physically. He looked mentally unwell.
Yes. I would agree. No, for sure. Yeah, I was just like, something look off. I don't know what he's doing with these gloves. That looked crazy. But yeah, it just, for me, these type of things in sports, even outside of boxing, you always like the idea of the underdog story, but the reality always hits. You're like, yeah, they old. Yeah, like, because you just love it. It. A lot of times, at least for my sports history, it never happens. This super magical underdog story. Like, yeah, the old man did it. He had one more in him. How many times have we really said that? I think the only time I could think about was probably George Foreman, I think, versus Mike when he won the championship. That was a big deal at the time. I do remember that. But for the most part, this car accident always usually ends the same way. And that's why I was so disgusted about it. I'm like, yeah, I got finesse. Like, why does...
Exactly. Because bringing it over to football, last season, Joe Flacco comes in for the Browns. All right. Has a phenomenal few games with them. I'm rooting for him the whole way. The Browns don't bring him back as a backup. He comes on to the Colts this season. And I was like, hell yeah, Flacco time. Let's go. Not good. Didn't go well for Joe Flacco this season. This was the one where you're like, yep, he's old. Yep. And it was a bummer only because it's like, if he had just left it where he left off with the Cleveland Browns, because, you know, they did lose that final game, but it was the fact that he gave them a chance. It was the fact that after a rocky start to the season, Joe Flacco comes in and saves the day. And it's like, look at Joe Flacco. Also funny because the Jets didn't re-sign him as their backup. There's so many layers to this. But then he comes back to the Colts, and I'm rooting for him every game that he played in this season, but he just couldn't cut the mustard. So it was just one of those things of like, yeah, all right, Joe, it was great to see you. Maybe we finally hang it up now. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Let this be the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you raise a good point, Micah. Let me ask you guys this. What precedent does it set going forward for the HBOs and the Netflixes of the world? Now, the age disparity thing, ingenious in that we keep saying car wreck, right? It's like going to NASCAR. Part of the entertainment, as gross as it sounds, but as understandable as it is these guys are going 200 and something miles an hour on an oval racetrack. You know, there's a very high possibility somebody's going to crash. And that's part of the sensationalist gladiator thing that we love. Football, same shit, right? Will they learn their lesson? Like, all right, this was a bridge too far. We could do the age disparity thing. We could do the retired champ versus the new blood coming up, but maybe not to this degree. Or do they continue with this thing of like, no, we're going to put whippersnappers in the ring with old men or old women. And, you know, where do you guys think it goes? Cog, what do you think about this?
Look, I always say I never take nothing away from Jake Paul in the sense of it's marketing genius. It's what he's marketing is just enough of a threat to intrigue you. Listen, I got duped. I fell for. I'm like, yo, there might be a shot here, you know, kind of thing. And each one of these fights, again, a lot of it also he picks great name recognition as opponents. These are household names. You hear Mike Tyson, you hear Anderson Silva. Like, again, that's one of my favorite, mixed martial arts of all time. And I'm just like, I've got to see it. They may have one more in them. Like, I gotta, outside of the person being in a wheelchair or, you know, geriatric, like you think, hey, you know, this person may have a shot. And I know what it is too. The reason why the intrigue is there is because Jake Paul is good, but he's not on the level of what you would consider like a very dominant, established professional. Because here's the thing, when he actually fought someone his age and was in his time, he lost. And that's the thing. So people, the appeal to him also is there's a ton of people that want to see him lose and get his comeuppance, so to speak, against people they feel he should. And that's where this is the draw. You got those. It reminds me of Floyd a little. There's people who just come in like, yo, we need to see him lose. We got to see him lose, right? So you got to get that. And then you're going to get the people who also love these household names and think, hey, yo, you like, think about what you said about the marketing. Before the fight, they're showing vintage Tyson clips.
Yeah.
Him knocking the classic. Yes. So in your mind, you're like, yeah, that's going to happen. That's how I remember him, right? See, I know how this goes because me and Micah know we know sports. It's like, we have these love affair, we romanticize of the greatness, but then when you see what your man is right now in 2024 and ulcers and bruh, I've seen it all, and I've learned like, yeah, they old. It ain't happening.
Michael, what do you think about this? What do you think? Where do you think they go from here? Do they try? You know what I think? I think. Like, how do you get to that level again of like everybody being tuned in? They know damn well in the office, at school the next day, this is going to be the big water cooler talk. Even if you don't want to, you feel like you kind of have to. Maybe they get a guy like Joe Rogan to fight. You know what I mean? I don't know if he goes older or younger, but like that's the only thing I could see that could possibly match. It's like celebrity deathmatch. We're doing the real version of celebrity deathmatch.
Facts.
But what do you think? Where do they go from here? Because obviously they're not going to stop.
No. The thing is, so long as people will watch, and Cog was right on the money, you have the people who simply want to see Jake Paul lose, and you have the people who also are like wholeheartedly like, oh yeah, Mike Tyson could take him. Yeah, like I'll watch that. A big part of this, in my eyes, is simply that we hadn't seen Mike Tyson in action in so long, even though like his last fight in 2005 was not good. And he admitted afterwards his heart wasn't in it. He said he didn't put on a good show. He didn't want to box anymore if that was the level of performance he could put out. And so it's like when it's been almost 20 years since we've seen this man in the ring in an actual event, what you remember is what you're going to go on in terms of his ability. And of course, it's been 20 more years, and that's not what we got. Even that, not what we got. But no, do I think this will stop? No way. I also, the funniest thing would be, does this pave the way for other events? Are we going to have like Jake Paul versus Larry Bird in a dunk contest? Like, are we going to start getting old people from other sports?
You're going to challenge Jordan to a basketball bestie.
Do we take it to other sports? I mean,
that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's, but because it is intriguing. Humans we all have so much in common when it comes to these things that we are curious about. And everyone wanted to see, what is Mike Tyson capable of at this age? Now, maybe we do Mike Tyson versus a boxer in his actual age bracket. Maybe that actually would have been a good fight. But no, I don't see these stopping. The only thing I would say is, who would be next on his list? I don't know. And then would they agree to it? There might be a time when he runs out of willing participants. I don't think the people at the top ever stop trying to workshop this because it's a money factory. But do they run out of willing opponents at some point who don't want to tarnish their legacy? Or do you just take the $20 million because you don't? It's like, who cares if I lost? He's got $20 million.
That's what it is too. And to add on to your point, the money. I always forget, Dagan, about his star power. Again, I didn't grow up with his generation, and they know him. He is such a household thing. He's
100%.
The Kardashians of this thing. Like, he's that.
Yeah.
So his following is immense. And then to his credit, a lot of these guys who are these legends, whether they're in money trouble, they're never going to come across the amount of money that they are going to make in these fights. He's pissed off Dana White because, like, the UFC guys, they make a fraction of this money.
Yeah.
This one fight, they've almost triple they've made in their entire careers.
Isn't that crazy?
So he's going to get more people lining up, willing to do it. The question is the name, and it has to make sense for him, kind of thing. I think right now he's calling out Conor McGregor, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how I heard. So again, it's a strategic play. I think they've got the ultimate hustle. I think they know it. I have to give the Paul guy, that family, they know what they do. I think the other one is in Micah. I think the other one's in wrestling. He's in WWE. I heard he's really good.
Oh.
Yeah, the brother is in wrestling, and he's really good.
Logan Paul's a wrestler? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's in
I didn't know
WWE.
either.
I saw, I'm like, wow, this guy's actually capable.
Holy
so they're
shit,
an athletic family. I got to give them credit. They know how to market, social media skills out the wazoo, and they get butts in the seat. And they do a good job. I have to admit. Jake's especially with this whole generational thing that they got going on. It's a marketing genius.
Oh, they got a powerful, powerful marketing team behind them. And just in the fact-checking department, before I forget, we brought up the Japanese suicide forest debacle. That was Logan Paul, apparently, according to the internet. I don't know the story there, but
I gotta be so honest with you guys that for a long time, I thought it was just one person. I didn't know there was two of them. This is just one of those things of like being so far out of the loop. It like they look alike, first of all. All right. So
they
like
really do.
and I'm old. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's definitely him wearing the like the Baby Yoda hat or whatever at the suicide forest. I think it was like was it the Toy Story alien guy? He was wearing like a green hat.
I see that. I have that picture right here. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's him. You tell me it's his brother. I'm like, oh, sorry. Because it's like, I really thought these were at the time, I thought there was only one of them in the first place. Finding out that there were two of them the whole time is like finding out someone had a secret twin you didn't know about. And it's like, what? You're telling me there's multiple Pauls? And what if you told me there was a third one that worked at a chocolate factory, I'd be like, okay. I'm so out of the loop.
I love it.
It's so funny that you say that, Mike. I think I thought the same thing initially, but apparently it was like, I don't know, it might have been a whole family even beyond those two. I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
You know?
I know. Yeah.
This is the Costco people. All right,
Yes.
the Rizzler, AJ, and Big Justice, and Colin's telling me about this, and I'm like, what the hell are you saying to me right now? Like, what? Like, who's the Rizzler? And like, I really am just like, I'm too old for this.
I'm just finding out about them. It's funny. I was just researching them this week. I'm like, who are these people? And I'm seeing them come on my timeline, and I'm like, wow, okay.
It's a whole thing.
It's a thing.
It's a whole thing.
I was like, who the hell is Big Justice? What's going on here? What's happening?
You know what I'm thinking about as you guys are talking? Did we learn nothing from Rocky? Was it Rocky 3? Why don't we just do Tyson? If we're doing, generationally accurate, sort of on the same, why don't we do Tyson, Hulk Hogan?
There we go.
There's two 80s superstar, right? I say we keep going with it. I know he doesn't need the money anymore after this purse, but we keep going with a Tyson series and just try to do a little evenly, just try to get to the evenly matched until he wins, essentially.
Yeah, old man circuit till we get one.
He might be down. He might be crazy enough to do it. He might be crazy.
Funny time we're in right now.
Oh man, it was so funny. Are you guys satisfied? I feel good. You guys really you guys really saved the day with that one. I appreciate your perspectives. That was a lot more for me. That conversation was 100 times more entertaining than the actual fight. That fight was
way more action packed here.
Holy shit. I didn't know if a boxing match could be that boring.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Did you say on Twitter, Dagan, your son went to sleep?
He fell asleep in the second round.
Not worth watching. It's whatever.
He's upstairs playing Fortnite. Like, Dad, is it on yet? And the exhibition fights were on. He's waiting for the main event. He finally came down, had our snacks. Yeah, he was asleep in like 4 minutes.
It's boring when a child chooses to go to bed early versus watching the main event.
There you go.
Not good. But it gave us something to talk about.
Yes.
So that's always good. All right, my friends. Well, listen, that's another one in the record books. Did I take your guys' temperatures on this? How do you guys feel? You two feel about the 3-man thing versus the 4-man thing? Did we discuss that yet?
Oh, I haven't been on, I don't think, since we made this change.
So what are you feeling now that you're into this now and you've done an episode with the 3-man as opposed to 3-person, as opposed to 4-person? What do you think?
I mean, honestly, in some ways, it's like the conversation flows a little easier with 3 people versus 4. It doesn't feel as much like you have the possibility of one person not talking for a long time type deal. It's like I see the feedback from the listeners. Some of them really don't like the 3-person episode. Some of them love it. Mm-hmm. And the reality, as the person who schedules things, the reality is that we simply cannot please everybody. So it's making choices that are best for the hosts and that still please people. If we had like literally 99% of people saying they hated it, it'd be something to consider, but we don't. We have gotten a lot of feedback, positive, that I like that the show is more like 3 hours than 5. We have gotten a lot of good feedback in that area as well. So I think this was fun. I think it works well. It's one of those things that, do you lose a few combinations of unique people? Of course, because you're removing one of them. However, when we were doing the 4-person episodes, we got feedback that it's like, oh, well, you like Micah's on too much. And it's like, well, because if we do 3 people, you complain. But if we only have, 3 people and I fill in, you complain. So I'm going to go with 3 people simply because if you're going to complain either way, I don't want to deal with it.
There's a little bit of that. There's definitely a little bit of that. You make some good points, though. Yeah. Really salient points. And I think, what about you, Cog? Have we talked about this yet?
We talked briefly about the last time I was talking about. Yeah, now this is my second, time of it and of the 3-person permutation. Yeah, I like it. I think that, look, at the end of the day, we're LSM, we're huge, right? We have a ton of faces and stuff like that, but you could get more different combinations, right? And scheduling wise, I'm biased. It definitely helps timing wise, right? But I think also we get I think it's you get more intimate as far as with the three and have that natural bounce back. Not that it didn't happen before, but I think sometimes we could stay a little bit more on threads that kind of, satiate the synapses. Yeah, wait a minute, that got me thinking of this. And because sometimes I feel with the four, sometimes like Micah said, the fourth person sometimes may have to set out, or sometimes their topic may be shortened because it was such a meaty episode, that kind of thing. So I like it right now. So LSM fam, appreciate the feedback. Obviously, we're listening, and leave all that to Micah and Colin. But yeah, I personally bias love it. I get a nice little flow, what I'm saying? And it's really cool. So I like it.
I hear you. Yeah, you guys both make awesome points. But I think if I had to pick one, I'm in favor of the 3 over the 4. I enjoy both, but from my position, not even hosting, just being on the show.
Yeah,
I just do think it lends itself better to conversation that just flows.
Yes,
a little bit better. So, but I do appreciate the feedback, and I'm definitely checking out the comments and seeing what people think.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You're taking your time. This is the thing about podcasting. One listener, viewer, 100,000. It doesn't matter. You're choosing this over something else, which means a lot to me. It means a lot to all of us. We've been doing this a while. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things. There's just a lot of podcasts vying for people's time. So, I do like the feedback. The only feedback that makes me angry is Colin needs to be on the show. That pisses me off. Stop it. You can't have everything. We know he's the best podcaster and blah, 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 blah. It's fine. Yes, he is. He's a natural talent. Nobody's ever going to be as good as Colin. Stop it. You can't have everything. You have him on Sacred Symbols every week. It's enough. Enough.
That should be another Stelly one time. Like, how's it feel? Superstar brother, and then Dagan.
It's unbelievable. And the worst thing is, he deserves it.
I think of those. You'll laugh, Dagan, because you're art and animation. I think of the old Looney Tunes, and I'd watch. It'd be like Bugs Bunny in big letters, and then Daffy. Remember those ones? And Daffy Duck would be so pissed off.
Yeah.
No Daffy Duck, my man Dag. All right, he's a star.
Don't do it.
He's a star. Don't you do that, y'all?
He is. Dagan has the star power. I got it. I forgot. I got recognized at the grocery store this week.
No way.
What?
And so shout out to a really nice listener who. What happened was he was working at the grocery store, and I complimented his glasses. He had these really cool, like, electric blue glasses. And I was like, oh, those are sweet. And then I made a joke saying, like, I like to have colorful glasses so I don't lose them as easy. And then, he kind of looked at me. He's like, do you have a podcast? And I was like, yeah, do you know it? And he's like, yeah, I listen, to Sacred Symbols. So, I'm not going to name him, but it's like, shout out to that guy. Super nice. It was really busy at the store, unfortunately, so I couldn't like talk to him more.
Yeah.
But it was really cool to run into a local listener. But also I remember feeling like, it was one of those feelings of like, thank God I'm not an asshole to cashiers or anything, because man, you never know. I'm a nice lady when I'm out at the grocery store regardless, but you never know who you're looking at, if they know you or not, when you're in this position. I'm not saying I'm famous or anything, but I got recognized at the doctor's office over the summer.
Wait, and that's same twice. Deal.
If I had been like a major bitch that day, that wouldn't have been good at all.
Let me tell you about Micah, y'all. Let's tell you the real.
What? I'm super pissed. Micah, I've been recognized once, and somebody thought I was Colin. That was my one time. Like, somebody screaming across the subway.
I'm telling you, that's a future Stelly. Yep. Like, you know what I'm saying? The sibling of a superstar. How does that work? I'm giving you free content right now. I'm telling you, people want to hear that story.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? I mean, it's like ridiculous. It's like he's so talented. I was just telling a coworker today who didn't know I podcast. I don't know how, because I've been working with this guy for years on and off. But he's like, you podcast? And I had to do the whole story. And then Colin comes up, and then it gets to be, yeah, Colin, he's got the big Patreon. He's been doing this for years. He's been on Rogan twice. And as I'm going further and further, I'm just wilting. As I'm describing it more and more.
You're describing all the accolades of your brother.
I'm just like slowly wilting, dying inside, as I'm saying. But But that is the preeminent comment. I see that comment a lot. It's like, where's Colin?
Yeah.
It's like, really? Can we just...
Yeah.
I get it, but stop. Don't say it to me. But I get it. I would want to hear Colin too. Like, I get it, but
we get it. We understand.
But it's sad for me. Think about my feelings.
Exactly. Feelings, damn it.
Cog, I'm going to stay with you for goodbyes. Heading into the weekend. Thank you for being on the show. Any way you want to leave it, my friend.
Yeah, good permutation. Good to see you, Dag. Always fun discussions. I'll always I get to talk to someone in my age bracket. It's always that understands my stupid ancient references, and that doesn't sound like gibberish. So I appreciate you. Always get a chance to talk. And of course, Mike, and we have our connection. And it was funny because the JW story does end to come up sometimes, which is kind of funny. But just in general, I love our interactions and stuff like that. So, and remember at the Dukes for the Sacred, I was the one that knew you better than everyone else. Remember that?
That's
I won
true.
that. I'm very prideful that I won that because I was like, I listened to my sis. I know what she's thinking.
That's what's up.
Exactly.
Good chemistry in this group. Micah, we're heading into the weekend. We're in this Friday evening, turning into night. Snowing still in Philly. It is snowing still. Holy shit. Yeah. Dude, how do you want to leave this? Say hi to Colin for us.
Absolutely.
Right. Send our love.
You guys, if you haven't heard about it, just real quick, if you haven't heard about the man from Wisconsin who faked his own death and has now been found out to be in Uzbekistan, you got to Google this.
I don't know this.
It's the wildest story. This dude, kayaker, told his wife he was going kayaking. He never came home. They find his kayak overturned. They find his life vest. They search for a body for weeks. Nothing. And the authorities later get a ping that, like, the Canadian, whether it's the Border Patrol or what, they had his name for some reason in Canada, right? And of course, it's like, maybe he's still missing. Maybe his passport was stolen. All right, maybe his identity was stolen. They go on his computer. He never wiped it. He was chatting with a woman from Uzbekistan.
What?
And that was last week's news of like, oh my God, the man might still be alive. This week, they made contact with him. He sent a video to the American authorities. He's alive and well. He does not want to return to the States or his family. It's just a crazy story. And
What?
I'm curious if we'll ever get another update, though. This really might be like the last we ever hear from this guy, and that he might truly disappear this time. But it's like he left like a wife and 3 kids behind in Wisconsin to go to Uzbekistan.
What is
and it's
going
just
on?
like, talk about disconnecting for a week, Cog. I mean, this guy, this guy was like, divorce, too easy.
Oh, that's disconnected. Man, started another life. I like the elaborate, what he left behind as fake clues to make it seem like this death is. That's wild.
Oh my God, this man needed a hobby or something. Let this guy go golfing every Sunday. What was happening here? I don't understand.
But it felt like the Titan submersible again, just in terms of I was waiting for an update. I learned about this dude last week when I saw that they had said on his computer they discovered he was talking with a woman overseas. And then this week we get the update that he sends them this video of himself and he's alive and well. And it's like, now it's like the Titan sub of I'm waiting to find out if we'll ever get any more details, or he may just disappear. I don't know if our country has friendly relations with Uzbekistan and if the police there will locate him and send him back. I don't know. We may really have just had this guy and he'll have a Wikipedia page now and this will be it.
I need to know more. I need to find out more. Yeah, I mean, Eastern Europe. This, I'm scrolling through the headlines. Wisconsin man, Wisconsin father, Wisconsin man. This one headline has him as Wisconsin kayaker. Like, what faked his own death? What is that?
Well, that's because, the plausibility of him going missing was heavily because he was an avid kayaker, to my understanding.
Okay.
And so he told his wife, I'm going kayaking, nothing out of the ordinary. He texted her, I'm on my way home, like I'm coming home soon. And then when he never arrived, the next day they sent out the search party. So this was all part of the web that he loves to kayak and everyone knows that. And it wouldn't have been suspicious. It's not like he picked up this hobby a week ago and said, oh, I'm going to go be a kayaker now. It all fits so perfectly. But if you haven't heard of this story, you got to go look it up because it's just one of those, the truth is stranger than fiction type deals.
I mean, that is one hell of a note to go out on, but I like it. I'll be looking into that as soon as we stop rolling.
I've been obsessed with the story all week. Like, Colin is the true crime guy, okay? Like, when somebody goes missing, he's like, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? But this was the one that I was like, Colin, did you hear about this guy? And he was like, no. And we're looking it up together like,
that's dope.
This. Yeah. But so usually first. Usually I'm not the one who's ahead of the curve on these things, but this one story, man.
Wow. Yeah, I got to dig deeper. This is interesting. I don't know how I didn't know about this. And hey, you guys out there, dig deep. Look, we leave you these little morsels to get into post podcast. We can't entertain you guys forever, right? And that's it, my friends. Another one for the record books. Were you not entertained? Now, if you'll indulge me in a bit of house cleaning, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access. As always, none of us like the FOMOs. Put your money where your mouth is. Laststandmedia.store has the merch. What kind of merch you want? Colin and Micah's garage is full of merch.
Yes.
It's not good. It's very organized. It's the cleanest garage I've ever seen, actually. It's fantastic. I have garage envy, for sure. But take a little bit of that merch out of the garage. Empty it out slowly. Right, Micah? Get rid of some of that clutter. It's not cluttered at all. It's in beautiful handmade cabinets. But I'm trying to I don't know. I'm not making a very good case for selling merch.
No. It's working. I would still like them to buy the merch, regardless of if it's organized nicely. I do still want them to buy it. Also, minor announcement. Canada, the Canadian Post has gone on strike. And we are not sure yet how this impacts us mailing things to you. Oh. I'm waiting until next week to kind of see if there's any update. I think their last strike lasted 30 days or something. So,
shit.
Just for our Canadian listeners, we recently ran a pre-order of the Stand Down merchandise. Mm-hmm. Tentatively, I'm going to hold those packages until we know more, simply because it seems like a bad idea to ship them all out to maybe a garbage bin. And they may never arrive. I'm going to email all our Canadian customers when we actually get the merchandise and see what the situation is. But we are keeping an eye on that. We just have no clue what to do because we're American.
Very well done for addressing that. We have a lot of fans in the Great White North.
We do. I ship a good number of packages to Canada. So, it's one of those, most likely, if this isn't resolved by the time we get the shirts in, I will email all of you and determine what to do. A lot of these people have American relatives that they see. So sometimes they have me mail stuff to them instead. That's anyways. Smart.
Yeah.
Simply to save on postage.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll iron all this out, but I am aware of the situation. I want the listeners to know that I do know about it.
Micah, your title should be Postmaster, LSM Postmaster. I think you should push for that title.
That was a
small bump.
Actually, at my old IT job, Postmaster was a title for the guy who was in charge of all email on campus. And I always wanted just the title, not the job. The job was horrendous, but I did want that title.
You got it. You got the title. I'm giving it to you. And listen, talking about Canada, my oldest daughter may or may not be up in Toronto right now for a Taylor Swift concert. Don't ask.
Oh, Swifties.
Don't ask why she had to go 5 major cities away for Taylor Swift. It's a whole nother story. Listen, parting is such sweet sorrow, my friends. From Micah and Cog, I've been your host, Dagster Moriarty, and thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, you can always listen to your second favorite podcast. Peace.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.